South Africans as refugees, a concept that is specifically defined in international law. Crispin Piri is my guest at the top of the hour 7 here on the show. Then we'll tell you this, a deepening salary crisis within the Gauteng Department of Health has left numerous doctors, including those at key public hospitals such as the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, Charlotte Maxeke, Dr. George Mkari, unpaid for a few months at least. The situation has compelled some of them to comply with processes to prove that they are not ghost workers. All this while struggling to meet their basic needs. So, Mutalatale Modiba, who speaks on behalf of the Gauteng Department of Health, will come through and account for that process at about 10 to 7 this morning. And then the other story I want to flag for you this morning is this. Blind and visually impaired South Africans finally stand a chance in fighting against what's been described as a book famine. The Constitutional Court has intervened decisively, taking a clause from the Copyright Amendment Bill, which President Cyril Ramaphosa has been reluctant to sign into law, and they've taken that clause and inserted it directly into the law as it stands right now, the current Copyright Act. Doing that has allowed blind and visually impaired people to convert reading materials into accessible formats such as Braille without having to seek the permission of the copyright holder. So at about 8:20, I'll be in conversation with Fatima Lahore, who is a candidate attorney at the Section 27, that organization that has been part of this case. It's been a debacle, this whole copyright amendment bill, having first been mooted in 2015. So it's a full decade of just legislative toing and froing with no end in sight. Right now, where things stand is that the president has referred the bill to the Constitutional Court to check its constitutional soundness. But the rights of these South Africans could not wait any longer, and the ConCourt has decided that they are going to make this remedy. Take from the law that the president is reluctant to sign, lift up a clause and insert it in the law as it stands right now as a remedy. So that conversation at about 8:20. All of your regulars, once again, locked and loaded this morning. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne on traffic, Zaikan at your sports desk, including that story that half of the country probably don't want us to talk about. It is there in Zai's updates. Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief coming through shortly. Ndauleng Lechela has your business and market news. And of course, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7. Your calls on 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes. Please send those to 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel, and that is SAFM Radio. So what are we waiting for? Let's get this show started.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's done it again! Introduction!
Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
Let's say good morning to Melissa Puta with this morning's morning brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. We'll start with news relating to the controversial televangelist Timothy Omotosho. Tell me a bit more about his arrest and the expected appearance in court.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. So the televangelist Timothy Omotosho is set to appear in the Eastern Cape Magistrates Court today for allegedly violating South Africa's immigration laws. He was rearrested after Home Affairs denied his appeal against being declared a prohibited person. Though recently acquitted of his 32 charges, including rape and trafficking, Omotosho is now illegally in the country and faces possible deportation.
And then tell me, it's Child Protection Month. Tell me about what the Department of Social Development has been saying about how we combat human trafficking and child trafficking.
So this is an important one. They are emphasizing that the fight against child trafficking and abuse must begin at home. Their campaign this month aims to empower parents and caregivers to create safer environments for children following the public outcry over the case of Jocelyn Smith, who was sold by her mother and co-accused, and also the 7-year-old little girl from Matatiela. The department has warned that such cases are not isolated, as many others remain unnoticed, highlighting the urgent need to restore homes as safe spaces for children. Yeah.
And then tell me about what has come through from the courts regarding the contentious Ithala matter. We've been hearing a little bit from the KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Economic Development and Tourism.
Yes, so the KZN MEC, Reverend Musa Zondi, has assured Ithala Bank customers that they will soon regain access to their funds after a Pietermaritzburg High Court ruling set aside the Prudential Authority's decision to freeze the bank's accounts. The freeze was initiated by the PA-appointed repayment administrator, which was linked to the pending liquidation application. The court ruled that the RA had no authority to manage Ithala's operations, and the bank is expected to resume full operations soon. And this has been a judgment that was widely welcomed by the provincial government.
You know, Melissa, I think if you had not included this story trending on social media, there was going to be problems. We were probably going to be reported to the BCCSA, ICASA, and other people. And I suspect the report was going to come from our technical producer, Zelma Kribi, who told me very early on Saturday that this story needs to be part of our updates today. So tell us about the spread of love and peace across the country.
So on social media, hashtag Nedbank Cup Final 2025 is still trending. This was after the dramatic Soweto derby saw Kaizer Chiefs defeat Orlando Pirates 2-1 at a packed Moses Mabhida Stadium. The victory marked Chiefs' first trophy since 2015, and this is just a shocking one, I must say. And you can tell that, you know, the supporters...
Are you shocked?
I am.
Sounds personal.
They are full of pride and also disbelief, you know, and this is marking a redemption in an otherwise poor season that they've had so far.
All right. Thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta there with the morning brief in brief. So you see, Zalma, you see, we did that thing, okay? Are we good now? All right. Thank you very much.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, let's give you a sense of how your weather will be looking on this Monday morning. We start, look at that. No warnings coming through from the South African Weather Service. So let's start. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 21. Johannesburg, partly cloudy, 6 to 17. Mbombela will be cloudy at first, otherwise partly cloudy, 13 to 21. Polokwane, partly cloudy, 10 to 20. Mahikeng will be fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 20. Bloemfontein, fine, 3 to 17. Kimberley, fine 5 to 18. Uppington, fine 5 to 22. Cape Town will be cloudy at first, otherwise fine with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 20. George will be fine with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 21. Gqeberha will be fine with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 20. East London, fine 13 to 22. Durban will be partly cloudy, becoming fine in the afternoon with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 22. Richards Bay will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain, becoming fine in the afternoon with a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 21. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg is fine with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 21.
Hey Mzansi, autumn may be here, but we're extending the sunshine on our blue sky offers at Ford. Get a new Everest XLT from just $9,999 per month at prime less 5%. When financed through Ford Credit, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. 10% deposit, 6% interest, 40% residual. And remember, every blue sky offer comes standard with our Ford Family Promise. That's just $9,999 at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, made the bake. From the grind to the glam. Anele Zondo The Glow Up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
The city of Durban is once again ready to roll out the red carpet for thousands of delegates and influential buyers who are gathering from across the globe from the 12th to the 15th of May to attend the Africa's Travel Indaba. This premier travel exhibition stands as the continent's flagship event, showcasing the best that Africa has to offer in leisure travel. Visit Durban to explore and experience the city's stunning natural landscapes and world-class attractions. Join Durban Tourism at stand DEC 1G09 for your next holiday destination. For more details, visit visitdurban.travel or follow at DBN Tourism on social media platforms. Hashtag Discover Durban, hashtag Visit Durban, hashtag Endless Fun Season, hashtag Africa Travel Indaba, hashtag ATI 2025, hashtag Durban has more.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
It's coming up to 22 minutes after 6. There's a feeling of so close yet possibly so far about the Russia-Ukraine conflict at the moment. On the one hand, it feels like we could be on the brink of a potential 30-day ceasefire, as well as direct talks between the two countries. This after Russian President Vladimir Putin offered direct talks between the two countries, suggesting they'd be held in Istanbul in Turkey this coming Thursday. But at the same time, Putin has rejected a demand from the leaders of Britain, France, Germany and Poland for him to agree to an unconditional 30-day ceasefire or face increased sanctions that could be implemented with the collaboration of the United States, as well as these countries increasing their military support for Ukraine. So let's speak to Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Good morning to you, Roland. So as I say, it feels like, it's one of those where the question is, which comes first? One of those which comes first situations. Russia insisting that the two countries meet and talk, and only at those talks could any ceasefire be discussed, while Ukraine says the ceasefire first and then we can talk. Does this subtle difference in approach negate from the potential of the moment?
Good morning to Thulasizwe. No, not necessarily. I think it's a question of approach, a question of preference, and a question of how you see the situation. We know that one of the problems with the ceasefire so far has been that both countries are skeptical of the other side. They don't trust each other, which is understandable. And the fear has been, and this has especially been the fear from the Ukrainian side, that ceasefires are being used to change the context of what is happening, but also to change the positioning on the ground. So in that sense, there's a lot of apprehension. And in the end, you may have talks, even if the conflict and the fighting is continuing. There's nothing that prevents that. Of course, it may sound more logical to say, let's have a cessation of hostilities and then start talking. And often that is seen as a way of reducing the tensions. And once you stop the fighting, argument goes that it's easier to maintain that lull and then to build on that. But if that is not possible, the next option would definitely be engage each other and see if there's any grounds for a continuation. I think what mitigates against this approach is the fear that if you don't get exactly what you want, there's less pressure on you to just continue fighting.
What is it that makes Russia want to insist that a ceasefire be discussed at these direct talks? Is it this question of these so-called nuances that they've been talking about, to say at the end of the day we need to foreground these nuances in the event of any ceasefire that we come to, because unless these are addressed, these are the long-standing grievances that Russia has in that particular region. Is that the reason why they don't want the ceasefire to come before the talks?
It may be, although I think there are two other dimensions that one may add to this, and that is that firstly, Russia does not want to see anyone else seeing it as being weak or being forced into negotiations. It's very important for Mr. Putin to remain the strong man in the process and to try and dictate the process. To what extent he will be able to do that is difficult to gauge. The other reason is definitely the threat of more pressure on Russia. I think it's a nuanced approach he's taking, but he's definitely very well informed and sensitive to what is changing both in the US but also in Europe. And I don't think one must just discount the meetings that took place in Europe over the weekend and the message that comes from that. It is immediately after that Mr. Putin said, well, we can meet and discuss next week. So what he's doing is two things. He's playing into the pressure, but not in a way that shows him succumbing to the pressure. He's playing into the pressure by trying to take the initiative and say, well, if you want to talk, we talk next week. So I will determine when we talk, etc. But behind this lies work that's been taking place over quite some time. We know that the US president is going to be in the region, and we know that there will be talks in Turkey. So I think it's a combination of all these factors that is driving Mr. Putin, as well as all the other role players and Mr. Zelensky, to face the fact that at some stage they would have to start engaging on how to end the war.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights once again this morning. That is Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, I didn't want to be accused of depriving people their opportunity to celebrate and all these things. So I made sure that I've got enough time for you.
Wow.
Because we were being threatened with being pulled off air and things like those. Tell me about the celebrations that continue. Started on Saturday.
Yeah, and we've got someone who was from the bench to the big time. It's Kaizer Chiefs, by the way. The entire team, I'm sure, waking up with that trophy right there where it should be, beside them in their trophy cabinet. It will be a new edition, and this is after the Nedbank Cup win over Orlando Pirates. In goal, Brandon Peterson making a surprise start ahead of Bruce Bavuma, and coach Nazruddin Nabi says he wanted to protect Bavuma emotionally after the league defeat and trusted Peterson to rise to the occasion. Let's hear from Peterson.
I said it now the other day. Someone asked me if I'm ready. So, and I said, if I tell you I'm not ready, that means I haven't done a job. You know, I prepare every week for every game like I'm going to play, because whether you're on the bench, whether you're in the stand, you can't control that. The only thing you can control is being ready. You know, and I think for me that was very important to make sure that every day at training I give my best, I do my best, and when the opportunity comes, I take it with both hands.
Now, Mamelodi Sundowns, they put one hand on the Betway Premiership trophy after they cruised to a 3-0 victory over Stellenbosch at the Lucas Masterpieces Moripa Stadium. First half goals from Lucas Ribeiro, Ikram Reyners and Arthur Sales, ensuring that Miguel Cardoso's side went 15 points clear at the summit, with only 15 still on offer for second place Orlando Pirates, who have 5 matches still to play. Elsewhere, Manchester United's desperate Premier League campaign looks like reaching a conclusion as Ruben Amorim's Europa League finalists were beaten 2-0 by West Ham at Old Trafford. In the meantime, Crystal Palace got their Saturday's FA Cup final full of belief and confidence. They had a dominant 2-0 win at Tottenham. Rugby, the Scarlets, they boosted their United Rugby Championship playoff hopes with a 32-19 bonus point win over the Lions, a first victory on South African soil since the 4 South African franchises were introduced in 2021. And tennis action, the top-ranked Arina Sabalenka fought back from a set down against Sofia Kenin to advance at the Italian Open. The other match saw Coco Gauff advancing to the 4th round. She overcame Magda Linette 7-5, 6-3. And finally, golf, the 22-year-old Martin Quavra, he secured his maiden DP World title, carding the joint best final round to win the Turkish Airlines Open, leading by 2 shots after 36 holes. Quavra slid down the leaderboard, but he had a disappointing 1 over par round of 72. But the tour debutant responded with a final round of 7 under par 64, consisting of 9 birdies and a couple of bogeys to take the clubhouse lead on 17 under. That's the sport. We'll be on par with more sport top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the first group of white Afrikaners granted refugee status by the US government is expected to arrive in Washington this morning. They departed OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg yesterday. Televangelist Timothy Omotoso is expected to appear at the East London Magistrates Court this morning following his arrest this past weekend by the Home Affairs Immigration Inspectorate in East London. And Hamas says it will release an Israeli-American hostage as part of efforts to reach a ceasefire deal in Gaza and allow humanitarian aid into the territory. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're driving out of Benoni, there's been a crash between Tom Jones and Atlas Road. It's on the N12 and it is Joburg bound, so just watch for that. The Mopani Highway is quite heavy out of Shoshanguve, queues down towards Block XX area. And other side of Joburg, we've got some queuing pressure between 14th Avenue and Bayers Nordia Drive. That traffic northbound coming up to Randburg looking quite heavy. Also just getting this in a crash at Crown, so extra delays coming through from the Boyson side. Durban protesting, burning tyres this morning, M19 Umgena Road. Around the N2, just watch for some delays going between Springfield and Reservoir Hills. It looks like the rumble strips on the N3 outbound are already backlogging traffic. That's coming from the Spaghetti Junction area on your way to Pinetown. Cape Town, you got roadworks coming out of Mitchell's Plain and then a crash as well. So roadworks at Samora Michelle, a crash up before Turfall Road, very heavy on the N7. There's a lot of traffic jamming there, and a crash as well for Trekker Road at Jake's Curville Drive in the heart of Goodwood, causing some delays. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. The business update on SAFM.
All right, we are waiting Ndawuleng Lechela to give us an update on the key business stories of the day. Of course, among some of what Ndawuleng will be covering is that agreement between the US and China, a trade agreement. This will be welcome news for many people, I imagine, given the kind of disruption that this trade war that has been happening between the two countries has wrought on the global economy. Ndawuleng, good morning to you. Tell me a bit more about this confirmation coming through from the White House about the US and China having struck an agreement.
Morning, Tula. So the US and China announcing a potential trade deal after 2 days of negotiations in Switzerland. According to US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the talks were productive and made substantial progress. Another representative from the US, Jameson Greer, described the agreement as a deal that will help reduce the US trade deficit with China which currently stands at about $1.2 trillion. But details of the deal remain scarce, with persons saying that more information will be provided in a briefing later today. The Chinese delegation, led by Vice Premier He Lifeng, described the talks as candid, in-depth, and constructive. It seems like both sides have agreed to establish a consultation mechanism for trade and economic issues. U.S. President Donald Trump, in the meantime, praised the talks, saying that the two sides had negotiated a total reset in a friendly but constructive manner. He also emphasized the need to reduce the U.S. trade deficit with China and open up Beijing to American business. Now, last weekend's meeting in Switzerland marks a significant development in the ongoing trade tensions between the two nations, which escalated earlier this year when the U.S. upped tariffs on Chinese imports to about 145%, and we also saw China retaliating with levies on the U.S. imports.
Yeah, I think we'll all welcome a pulling back from the brink in as far as that is concerned, because, as I say, the consequences were going to be global in nature. At the same time, tell me about China's exports increasing in April.
Coming in as a surprise, of course, Thulas, Beijing delivering a jump in exports, coming in 8% higher last month, beating expectations of a 1.9% increase. Now, the growth was largely driven by a rise in shipments to Southeast Asian countries, particularly Indonesia and Thailand, which saw 37% and 28% year-on-year growth, respectively. Now, exports to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations as a whole surged 20.8% in April, offsetting a sharp 21% drop in exports to the U.S. last month, and that, of course, due to tariffs. Now, China's exports to the European Union also rose, up 8.3%. Imports, however, fell 0.2% year-on-year, compared to expectations of a 5.9% drop. Despite the decline, the trade surplus came close to market forecasts of about $96.2 billion. Experts attribute the export growth to front-loading of orders ahead of tariff hikes and potential transshipment through third countries. One of the analysts at Pinpoint Asset Management has raised concerns, though, expecting trade data to weaken gradually in the next few months.
All right, Dowling, please give us a recap of how we closed on Friday, but also a sense of how Asia has set the tone for this week.
Well, we saw some profit taking at the end of last week, with U.S. stocks in particular closing in the red. This as traders were nervous ahead of the U.S.-China trade negotiations. With that, the Dow led the losses, losing close to 0.33% in Friday's session. Meanwhile, back at home, markets traded in the opposite direction. In the green, the all-share gaining over 1%, boosted by a 1.4% jump in the Resources 10 complex. The rand, in the meantime, pretty steady. Some strength coming through this morning as optimism improves on trade talks. It's sitting at 18.21 to the greenback. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks mostly in positive territory, with investors, of course, cheering the U.S.-China trade deal that was announced by the White House.
When you hear from her, you know that your money is on the move and your week and your day has well and truly started. Dowling Lechela will be back with another update just after 7:30 here on The Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning. The start of a brand new week. Tell me about this flooding that has occurred in Somalia, particularly in the capital, Mogadishu.
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jumbo Africa, to the listeners. Thulas, the UN report last month have already indicated that 45,000 people have been affected by the flash floods in Mogadishu. Now we are in May, Thulas. Over this weekend, on Friday and Saturday, devastating overnight floods have damaged some of the areas in the capital city, Mogadishu. Here we are talking about 200 families who have been moved from their houses, and major roads badly damaged across the districts of Mogadishu. Thulas, remember, 2023, over 100 people were killed. And as it is the same time of the same flooding, others have said it is linked to the El Nino weather patterns.
And then, of course, when you have any image that features Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso is going to trend, when you then have those images circulating that include him, as well as the Russian President Vladimir Putin and others, it's even more. Tell me about these meetings, these talks that the Russian president has held with a number of African leaders.
Thulas, remember on Friday it was a victory day for the Russian government celebrating the 80th anniversary of their defeat of the Nazi Germany in the World War II. Now, many African leaders went to Moscow when others they were in Kyiv, Thulas. That show you the dynamics of the three leaders who were seen with President Vladimir Putin over this weekend, engaging on security matters. That is the leader of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas. You look at Dambuzo Mnangagwa from Zimbabwe. Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore also being part of that meeting. This was an important meeting to the sense. I said to you, there was an opposite meeting that happened on the train towards Kyiv, at the same time talking about the same crisis that we see between Russia and Ukraine. But it appears Putin giving support to these African countries as well as Palestine as they were celebrating the Victory Day on Friday.
Yeah. And then tell me about Burundi Decides 2025. You're saying that the campaign has well and truly started.
Thulas, it has started over the weekend. There was what they call symbolic ceremony in the political capital, Gitega, where we are looking at the elections of legislation and communal elections scheduled for next month, June 5. Burundi Decides. The president was part of that official launch, Thulas, at the Ingoma Stadium, where many people addressed their needs, and the president argued neutrality from all those public representatives and also pledged for peace and fairness that will be happening in these elections in Burundi. So Burundi going for the legislative and communal elections to us this month.
And then lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, take me to the 12th of May 1984. What happened of significance?
Thulas, it has been seen almost as the first visit in 22 years during a rare visit of the late Nomzamo Winnie Mandela to see Rolihlahla Mandela, the late Rolihlahla Mandela in Robben Island, to engage Thulas on the current political struggles that were happening in the then apartheid South Africa. There have been many visits that have happened to us. You will recall that Winnie Mandela was banished at some point to Bramford. Now, this visit also at some point to us, they say Winnie was so rough to us. He will also, there was a time he sneaked even the granddaughter for Nelson Mandela just to see that daughter to us. And this was showing the love that was between Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela during those times. So difficult to us, as you know, for women to visit his husband, and particularly looking at the political tension that was happening during that time. So this is a very important day to us as we recall the 12th of May 1984. Asante sana to us as was leading the conversation, SAFM observing the Africa Month.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update for today.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack, and what a crack! That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's done it again! Introduction! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM, the morning brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Credit to the initial reporting of the Sunday Times on the next story. A deepening salary crisis within the Gauteng Department of Health has left numerous doctors, including those at key public hospitals like Chris Hani Baragwanath, Charlotte Matleke and Dr. George Mukari, unpaid for months. The situation has compelled some of them to comply with processes to prove they are not ghost workers, all this while struggling to meet their basic needs. So the situation is straining hospital operations, placing immense emotional and financial pressure on healthcare workers and raising urgent questions about administrative dysfunction and accountability. Let's speak to Mutalatale Mudiba, who speaks on behalf of the Gauteng Department of Health. Good morning to you, Mutalatale. Knowing how crucial doctors are within our public health system, which is already under strain, why on earth would you fail to pay them?
Thank you, Tulas, for this opportunity. And I think it will be important that I maybe contextualize the matter.
Sure.
And starting where you started with the story that I think probably sparked this, so that your listeners have the benefit just of understanding where the matter is coming from and what is currently happening and all of those things. And I think to an extent, the story that you're referring to almost paints a particular picture that omits certain material facts. Let me start with just that story in terms of the facility that you cited, the Bara. In Bara, and this is what I took exception with when I engaged with the Sunday Times, in particular the lead reporter on the story, that why deliberately omit material facts which basically will change how certain things are reported. In Bara, the issue has nothing to do with where a doctor says they've not been paid for months and all of those things. It has more to do with the issue around the campaign. So there are four issues that I will touch on, which will then explain why we have certain doctors that maybe have not been paid and so forth. But the first issue is the issue of the campaign. You'd recall to us that the department at the beginning, in October 2024, began a campaign called Ziveze, where we said we're going to be verifying all our 85,642 employees who are currently on the department's payroll as part of a campaign to ensure that we can account for each and every person who is not on that payroll. And we said that failure to participate in that process would have other consequences, and those consequences, some of them would be freezing of salaries. It wasn't a process that was targeting doctors. It's a process that targeted all 85,642.
Sure.
At the end of April, there were about 188 employees whose salaries were frozen because they had not come forth to verify themselves for one reason or another.
Right.
And therefore, they've been given a chance even now to say, if you have not come forth, you would need to come forth, but when you come forth, you need to make sure that your own
Sure.
HR and CEO signs and confirms.
In
that
the interest
indeed
of time,
you-
Mutalatale, so that's the one factor.
then
What are the other factors? Yeah.
The other factors is that it's what you call committed overtime payments. Committed overtime payments is not a salary. It's money that is paid to you ahead of time for you to work overtime hours. So that one, it affects maybe a couple of facilities, not just the one that you cited. A couple of facilities are affected in terms of that. Even with that, it's not the entire system that is affected. There are isolated facilities where, because we have introduced other control measures insofar as committed overtime is concerned, where, for example, because we pay you ahead of time, we're
Yes.
saying produce evidence that relates to that in line with the policy. That has led to other people deciding to either comply very late. Like, for example, last week, on the 6-7, we got some of the people submitting their things, because now they realize that the things that we said we will implement insofar as control measures are being implemented. We have then people coming through to comply. Then the other issue is the issue of sectionals. Sectionals is specialists or doctors that we appoint that do certain work for us, but they are remunerated by the department when they render services for a fixed number of hours per week. It might not be people that are employed permanently in the system, but they do certain work. There, you have got people that are above 65. In terms of legislation, only the executive authority can approve such. In the past, the policy was not being implemented properly.
Sure. Mutalatale, it sounds like a lot of reasons that you are citing that I did not see them being cited in that article. And in fact, what I did see is a response that came from you that said, you are quoted as having said that the non-payment issue, initially you said, was limited to just 2 hospitals, and the reasons were, quote-unquote, administrative and financial challenges. And then the paper says, on Saturday, you then said the issue is, quote-unquote, confined to a handful of facilities owing to a number of factors such as appointments made without the correct processes being followed. The two cannot be, they're not mutually compatible.
Exactly my point, Tulas. It's almost as if you are reading the complaint that I sent to the Sunday Times. But let me deal with that part so that I don't dismiss it and we think that it's not a material factor. And that's the point that I took exception with the publication, that you ask me questions on ABC, but your story is anchored on something else. But nevertheless, what they have published partly is correct because it deals with another matter, which is the last point that I was going to raise with you, that in the system, we had a situation where appointments were made which did not follow the correct approval process. And that is something that has been communicated even internally with the respective facilities to say you're going to have delays in terms of what we call the loading of mandates. How the system works is that even when we make appointments as a department, we still have to follow a particular process that involves a sister department, like in this case, it will be eGov, where mandates have to be loaded before you can be appointed from your facility if you're working, let's say, at George Mukari. But your appointment still has to go through a particular process, and that process will involve eGov loading the mandates on the system for you to then start receiving payment. But if you appointed and other process not followed, it has a material effect of affecting your payment. That is where now the issue of the 3 people that have not been paid for 3 months will come in then. Hence, I say that element of the story would be correct. But unfortunately, we were not given a chance when I put this down in writing yesterday to many times.
But it appears to be a confluence of factors that you are citing.
Yes.
Is it coincidence that they all come to bear at the same time? It becomes hard to not read it as there's just so many excuses one way or another. The bottom line is, from the various reasons that you just cited, the bottom line is these doctors have not been paid, and it becomes hard to absolve you altogether to say you bear absolutely no responsibility. It was merely all of these factors you just listed. How much responsibility do you as a department bear?
Look, we must consider that obviously we're not pleased that we have this kind of a scenario because it does impact on other people's lives. And I think that is something that even our head of department has made it quite clear that there will have to be consequence management, even at our level, in terms of those that were responsible for processing some of these things, because it's not everything that is entirely as a result of people not cooperating with the system. Some of the situations that we're finding ourselves in is because of people not doing what they were supposed to have done so that we don't inconvenience others, because there's a reason why you have an administrative layer that is there to also ensure that those that are at the front line actually don't have to go through this kind of inconveniences, because we know that missing just one salary already it displaces quite a lot of things. And I think on that we have to really, I think, even apologize to the very healthcare professionals that are impacted by this, because it's not an ideal situation. And that's why we have prioritized this issue to ensure that those that are still infected get assisted as quickly as possible. And because
otherwise it sounds like otherwise it risks sounding like you were saying it's all of these factors and you as a department are just unfortunate victims of circumstances. And I'm glad that you're taking that responsibility.
No, you're quite correct, Tulas. It's just that because of where the story started, I needed to provide context. And as a piece that I did say to your producer that because of time, we have to rush through some of these things. But you're quite right. We can't point a finger at healthcare professionals while the three others are really pointing at us. I was just really trying to provide that context. But you're quite right.
Let's leave
we
it
have prioritized this matter. And if you look at even the same article, we did indicate there that we are going to take action because we are aware of where there were some of the bottlenecks where action needs to be taken.
All right, all good. Let's leave it there for this morning. That's Motalatale Modiba, who speaks on behalf of the Gauteng Department of Health.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Quite a busy start on the Gauteng highways. There's a collision coming out of Benoni. It's on the N12 between Tom Jones and Atlas Road driving to Joburg. Backlog of traffic, pretty substantial, right back through Snake Road and back towards the Pitfontein area. Also crash on the Mike 1 North and Crown interchange. So some extra delays as you run in from the Ormonde side. Collision before Bayers Nordia. N1 North has been cleared away. There is also a crash in Pretoria, N1 South before Atterbury. So that traffic coming through from the N4 looking quite heavy as well. Durban, Umgeni Road, M19 to the N2. Some protesting earlier this morning. Tyres were lit and they were put out pretty quickly and the crowd left. So M19, Reservoir Hill through Springfield is open. There is some protesting on the Electron Road though in the Springfield area. You're not going to be able to get through that route this morning. The N3 outbound, pretty heavy to Pavilion. Inbound slow. It's the rumble strips near Pavilion Mall in the construction that causing delays. In fact, the outbound side is pretty heavy for this time of morning. N2 North, the ones I'm 30 up to Prospect and 20 Hill territory. That's quite busy. And if you're coming out of Cape Town's Mitchell's Plain, there's a lot going on this morning. A crash up towards Turfall Road. That's after the roadworks at Samora Michelle. So 2 queues to work through. Another crash in front of Langa and a crash on the N7 at 4 Trekker Road in the heart of Goodwood. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me start with some voice notes. In fact, I want to start on a happy note. You know, those who are happy. So let's start there before we get to any other issues that may be debatable here and there. On a happy note, let's hear.
Hi, Thulas and listeners of SAFM, Jabu Chilwani Mkondo. I just need to congratulate Kaizer Chiefs for winning the Nedbank Cup a year and a day since they won the last one. Congratulations are in order. I think now, because these boys have tasted what it feels to win a cup competition, they will be more competitive. There will be an improvement in their performance from henceforth. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's not let's not hold back and just congratulate you as well. A lot of people are quite happy. A lot of people are unhappy this morning as well. But such is the nature of the game, isn't it? You win or you lose. And in a cup competition, there's no draw. A draw doesn't assist you much. There has to be a decider. So congratulations are in order. Then let's move on to this now. Earlier on, I started by telling you that we'll be talking a bit more about the 49 South Africans who have left the country, having accepted the designation that says they are refugees, despite the absence of the factors that at international law produce refugees. Let's hear what people have to say about that.
Good morning, Thulas and your listeners. This is Bonga in Komasi. I want to sincerely congratulate the Afrikaners who have left South Africa. Why am I saying this? Ask yourself how many of our own black people would have taken the offer if it was given to them, because there's not enough for them in South Africa. So as we mock and make fun of this, let's just look at the other side. How many of our black people would be queuing at the airport right now? Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I did see that commentary that says one or two people that I did see on my timeline saying that they would also take up this offer. I think the contention is the designation that they are refugees, because refugee is specifically defined in international law, and the circumstances under which a person can be considered refugee is specific. So anything else, if it's a pathway to citizenship, a pathway to careers, etc., I don't think we'd be discussing this at all. I suppose the only discussion would be why designate Afrikaners only and not make it open to South Africans in general. I suppose that would be the only debate. But refugees is where the contention is. And you will hear from Crispin Piri in the second hour of the show about how they're taking issue with that.
Morning, Thulas. It's Vugani from Durban. I want to comment about the Afrikaners who have gone to the US as refugees. I'll start by saying that it's no child's play to raise a family. So even myself, if I had an opportunity to be someone's responsibility together with my family and children, I would grab that opportunity with both hands. So those Afrikaners know that they are not being persecuted in South Africa, but they are taking advantage of Trump's stupidity, if I can put it that way. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Thulas. It's Father Trucker. Dr. Thulas, I've got great respect for farmers. Most of our work as truckers, it is from these farmers, and we love those farmers. But let's find out about these 48. What were they up to? What were they doing? Were they good citizens? Let's find out from the community around where they are coming from, these farmers. What were they farming, Elvis? Dr. Thulas.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think what you're raising there at the end is part of what the Department of International Relations, or let me just say government, one of the agencies was saying. Before they leave South Africa, they were going to be vetted quite thoroughly so that you don't have a situation where someone has a warrant or some outstanding issue, and by the time you realize it's too late. They're all the way in the United States and some states somewhere. The way that I understand it's being arranged, the Trump administration is working with agencies that assist refugees in sort of getting them started and settled in the United States. But we'll talk about it a bit more in the next few minutes when I speak to Crispin Piri. But for now, let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, group of Afrikaners granted refugee status depart to the US and Omotoso to appear in court after weekend arrest. Good morning. The first group of white Afrikaners granted refugee status by the US government is expected to arrive in Washington this morning. They departed OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg yesterday. The group reportedly includes 49 Afrikaners comprising families, older people and some younger couples. The chartered aircraft is expected to arrive at Dallas International Airport outside Washington, D.C., Sharon Bryce-Peace reports.
A press event is expected to be hosted by senior officials from the Departments of State and Homeland Security to welcome the first group of Afrikaners, two departments tasked in President Donald Trump's February 7th executive order with prioritizing their admission and resettlement. The expedited processing of the group comes at a time when desperate refugees from other countries have been blocked from coming to the USA, with immigration a hot-button issue for the current administration. A statement from Durko on Friday called it most regrettable that the resettlement of South Africans to the United States under the guise of being refugees is entirely politically motivated.
Judge Philip Lopsher is expected to hand down judgment in the Free State High Court today on whether other defence lawyers can cross-examine the state witness in the trial within a trial in the 255 million rand asbestos roof removal corruption case. This comes after Advocate Lawrence Hode's lawyer, former Free State Premier Ace Magashule, told the court that he also wanted to cross-examine the state witness. He also revealed transcripts of the interview between Murwadi Chulota and state investigators. The matter was postponed last Thursday after news that the state witness had been booked off sick. Kamogelo Siakui reports.
Judge Lobsher's ruling will determine whether the trial within a trial will be confined only to Cholota or other accused may poke holes in the state's case. Lobsher showed disapproval to Hoddes' conduct after he revealed the transcripts and told him his conduct was unacceptable. State prosecutor Johan de Neysen also accused Hoddes of unprofessionalism, but Hoddes was adamant that the transcripts have been submitted to the courts before and its authenticity was never questioned.
Televangelist Timothy Omotoso is expected to appear at the East London Magistrates Court this morning following his arrest this past weekend by the Home Affairs Immigration Inspectorate in East London. While the charges against him are not yet clear, the Department of Home Affairs says the arrest follows the rejection of his application to have the Minister of Home Affairs' decision to declare him a prohibited person in the country overturned. Omotoso was arrested just after a prayer service in one of his churches in the city. Last month, the High Court in Gqeberha acquitted Omotoso and co-accused Lusanda Sulane and Zukiswa Situ. This after finding them not guilty on charges including rape, sexual assault and human trafficking. Over 37,000 matric candidates will sit for the May-June National Senior Certificate examination in the Western Cape today. Provincial Education Department's Director of Communications, Bruna Hammond, says the examination will end on the 25th of next month. Hammond says the results will be available on the 8th of August.
It is a massive administrative exercise with a total of 54 subjects being written over the coming weeks at 165 exam centres. We appeal to everyone in our province to support our candidates as they write these important exams. And we remind candidates that additional resources such as examination question papers and memos and grade 12 subject content can be found at westerncape.gov.za/education.
And finally, Hamas says it will release an Israeli-American hostage, Eden Alexander, as part of efforts to reach a ceasefire deal in Gaza and allow humanitarian aid into the territory. U.S. President Donald Trump said on social media that he was grateful to those involved in the release, including the mediators Qatar and Egypt. The BBC's Hugo Bachega has the details.
Hamas is describing this announcement as a gesture, as a step towards reaching a final deal in Gaza. And I think the context here is crucial because this happens just days before President Trump is due to arrive in the region, and also amid multiple reports suggesting a growing discontent in the Trump administration over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's position in these negotiations.
Recapping the top story, the first group of white Afrikaners granted refugee status by the U.S. government is expected to arrive in Washington this morning. They departed OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg yesterday. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Have you heard the latest news, South Africa? Vincent, a 40-year-old man, wanted to save money on his car insurance premium, so he got a quote from Outsurance. Vincent now saves a massive 990 Rand a month on his 2022 Ford Ranger 2.2 litre. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you could pay less? Switch to Outsurance today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, soccer, it's the Kaizer Chiefs goalkeeper, Brandon Peterson, proud as his team ends their trophy drought. And athletics news, Akani Simbine sprints South Africa to World Relay Gold. We'll bring you details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Here's your traffic headlines. This Monday, big delays out of Pitfontein, Daveyton on your way through Benoni towards Joburg. That is a crash. This happened before Atlas Road, and the traffic backlogging almost as far as Kingsway, certainly back through the Pitfontein area. Heavy pressure on the bike one this morning, getting up into Crown. That's pressure of traffic plus an earlier collision. The N1 from Eldorado Park passing Devlin up into Deep Cliff interchange. You're going to see some real traffic queues through there as well. Collision on Pretoria's N1 South near Atterbury Road. It's heavy coming from the N4 Emilifleni Highway. A lot of pressure on the mighty Montpellier Highway, queues at XX, queues down through Theo Martins all the way into Eskia and Pathleli territory this morning. Durban, the N3 and those rumble strips causing delays both ways, outbound from Spaghetti Junction and inbound from Paradise Valley. The rumble strips between Pavilion Mall and Spaghetti Junction. A lot of traffic on the N2 this morning, M7 through to Umgena Road going north and Umgena Road down to Spaghetti Junction going south. And the M7's heavy again going up into the Pinetown area. Cape Town, a lot of crashes, one on the N2 inbound, Jake's at N2 inbound at Newway, so coming through Khayelitsha, that's heavy. Collision on Highlands Drive coming out of Mitchell's Plain before the M7. Crash in front of Langa on the N7 North. A collision on Voortrekker and N7 right in the heart of Goodwood, and a pedestrian down on the N7 going south just after Malabongwe Drive opposite Dunoon. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Monday morning. It is great to be in your company. We're into the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Here's what's coming up on the show in this hour. We'll tell you more about that development. Last night, a chartered flight leaving OR Tambo International Airport and headed for Dallas International Airport, if I'm not mistaken, and that's in Virginia. And they will receive a welcome from the Trump administration in Washington. Who am I talking about? The 49 South African citizens who are Afrikaners who are headed to the United States, having accepted the designation that says they are refugees in South Africa. The Department of International Relations takes issue with that specific definition of refugees as opposed to the definition that is enshrined in international law. In the next few minutes, I'm in conversation with the spokesperson for the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, that is Crispin Phiri, who will outline what the conversations have been between Pretoria and Washington. And then we'll give you a bit of analysis on that story with Craig Smith, who is an immigration lawyer. A bit later on in the show, in fact in this hour, we'll be talking to Celias Brink, who is the former Tshwane mayor, but also now the Democratic Alliance DA caucus leader in Tshwane. We'll be talking about the Labour Court ruling that has been in favour of the city of Tshwane for their refusal to implement a 5.4% salary increase amid financial hardships. We'll tell you a bit more about that at about 10 to 8 this morning. Through it all, I'd like to hear from you. Give me a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, please send those to 061 410 4107. The second hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let's get to that story now. Last night, the country bade farewell to 49 of its Afrikaner citizens who are to arrive in Washington today and be welcomed by the Trump administration as refugees. This despite the fact that South Africa is not at war, has not suffered any natural disaster such as famine, has no internal conflict, and no targeted persecution of any racial or ethnic group. The U.S. President Donald Trump's administration making good on its undertaking seeking to fast-track the resettlement of alleged Afrikaner refugees. This foreign administration that with one stroke of a pen in January shut the door to refugees from many troubled regions of the world, such as those from countries like Afghanistan, Sudan and the Congo. The South African government, through the Ministry of International Relations and Cooperation, has formally raised its concerns with the United States about this move. Let's speak now to Crispin Phiri, who speaks on behalf of the department and joins me now. Crispin, good morning. So these 49 South Africans have departed the country and they are being treated and will be received as refugees. Why can't we say, farewell to them and leave it at that?
Well, Thulas, I think in your introduction you said the country bade them farewell. I'm not sure if it was the entire country, but certainly what we have said is that they do have the right to leave and we would not stand in their way of leaving, and we have not done so. But what we are clear about and what we are unequivocally saying is that they are not refugees. I think if they were refugees, South Africa would be the only country in the world where so-called persecuted persons are judges, ministers. Next you will be speaking to Mr. Silas Brink, who I would imagine is of Afrikaans origin, a former mayor of the capital city. So really the designation that these individuals are being persecuted on the grounds of race and language is completely unfounded. But what we've also said very clearly is that whilst there are high rates of crime in South Africa that affects all people, all forms of people, we do not believe that the crime that we are seeing in South Africa is one of the grounds that is being raised, targets particularly Afrikaners. And I think this is a point that is well known even to your listeners, to us. But if individuals want to leave and go to another country, by any means, the Constitution allows you to do so. We have not stood in their way. But what we categorically are clear about is that these are not refugees.
And why does that irk you, the designation that they are refugees? Why does it matter? Why can't we just let the Trump administration, if they want to perceive them as refugees, leave them be and let them, define them as refugees, and we say these are our citizens who've opted to leave the country?
Because it creates other international obligations as well. How these individuals may be perceived in other countries as well may then require those states to treat them as refugees. And we are saying that this is not the case at all. These are individuals who have been fetched to us. Normally refugees come to a country without proper documents and are able to state their case to a refugee officer that I'm being persecuted in country X and therefore cannot return to my country because I fear persecution. And that's also something that we have raised. Say the principle of non-refoulement in this instance would be something that we would want to see how the U.S. in particular would apply, because they as a state cannot return these individuals back to South Africa if they believe they've done something wrong in their country. But secondly, if these individuals are to return to South Africa in terms of international law as well and refugee law, they then disown their refugee status to the United States. So that is something that we hope that these individuals have been thoroughly counseled and briefed on. And indeed, we will wait and see how it applies in their instance. But it is important for us to also state to the world and to our international partners across the world that there is no basis for these individuals to be declared refugees. It is highly unprecedented what we are seeing in this instance.
And you've had some engagements with Washington. Tell me about this engagement between the Deputy Minister, Alvin Botha, and the Deputy Secretary of State, Christopher Landau. What are you seeking to achieve with that?
This engagement, which has already happened with Christopher Landau, the Deputy Secretary of State, and our Deputy Minister, Alvin Botha, was in the main partly about this issue as well. And what we had said to the United States through the Deputy Minister on that call was that there are individuals who will take up this offer. We will not stand in their way if they believe that this is what they want to do. There is a right of leaving the country. It's a constitutional right, and people can exercise it as they wish. But what we sought assurances on that call was to from the Americans was to ensure that the individuals who are boarding these flights are not fugitives of justice. They are not individuals who are wanted by our courts, and that the screening processes that they embarked on align with our screening processes. and we had to ensure that these individuals are screened by our law enforcement agencies as well, and that subsequently did happen. But the call also did speak about the importance of Minister Lamula and Secretary Rubio engaging soon, and there are developments in that regard that will be happening, but also preparations for President Ramaphosa and President Trump to engage soon as well, as indicated by the two presidents, possibly in person, is something that the call touched on briefly to say this is something that is currently being facilitated by the administrations of both countries.
How difficult does this development make your work, Crispin, of trying to sensitively navigate the broader U.S.-South Africa relationship? Because, I mean, I see in your statement, for example, that you talk about this move is meant to, and these are not your exact words, but basically to cast aspersions on South Africa's democracy. You're not able to be as robust as you ordinarily would have been on these matters, are you? Given that you are engaged in the broader conversation about a reset in the relationship between the two countries.
I think through the diplomatic channels we have difficult conversations, and that's what is important, that through constant engagements we must be able to have these difficult conversations and ultimately have these conversations also at the highest level. And South Africa will continue to register its position. So definitely it's a difficult period. We don't agree on a number of fundamentals, it seems, at the moment. But I think what we can take a little bit of solace in is that the conversations are beginning to happen at the required strategic levels. And we hope that through those conversations, through that level of diplomacy, we will be able to find each other where we can. Where we agree to disagree, we would then be able to say we are agreeing to disagree on these particular issues. I mean, there are wide-ranging issues, but we continue to regard the United States as a strategic partner for our country and in the pursuit of our national interests.
All right, Crispin, let's leave it there for this morning. That's Crispin Phiri. He speaks on behalf of the Ministry of International Relations and Cooperation.
Time. When you're a kid, it moves slower than a sloth trying to get through airport security. There is just so much of it. Skip forward a few years to your 20s. Time is still your friend. It says have some balance. Go party and have fun. Then your 30s hit. And time suddenly steps on the accelerator like it's trying to catch a traffic light before it goes red. 40s. Now time is moving faster than your 10-year-old on a sugar high. 50. You're desperately trying to save as much as you can, but time is moving so fast. And all you can think is, where did all the time go? That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time for some much-deserved you time. Now, isn't that a compelling enough reason to invest? Ellen Gray. Long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene, along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
He's done it again! Introduction! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game!
Save and win a car with Spar for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 450 gram Bacoma Wheat Bix, original only, for $24.99, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 200 gram Baker's Murray biscuits. Buy any two for 30 Rand, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Prices valid until 19 May, while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, let's continue that conversation with about the Trump administration fast-tracking the resettlement of a select group of white South Africans, specifically Afrikaners, under newly granted refugee status in that country, despite a broader freeze on refugee admissions from war-torn or crisis-stricken regions globally. Let's speak to Craig Smith, who is an immigration lawyer and joins me now. Good morning to you, Craig, and thank you for your time. So given the framework and the scheme at international law of what a refugee is, these 49 South Africans and perhaps others who may follow in the months and years to come, do they, strictly speaking, qualify as refugees as far as you know?
Well, look, the definition of a refugee has long been in our statute books. The definition that we are talking about is the definition that the U.S. holds. But what is different is the president also has a say in the definition of what he considers a refugee as well. I mean, the question is, normally there are two grounds for refugee status. Are you persecuted in your country? And B, is there war in your country? There's certainly no war in South Africa, and whether these people have been persecuted, that is a matter that, in my view, I don't think they've been persecuted. What Donald Trump has done is he has made a sort of a knee-jerk response and said, well, they are subject to racial discrimination, and I'm going to give them this right. But I think what underpins this whole thing has been South Africa's political spat, with America. We had Ibrahim Rasool, the ambassador, who was removed from America. So whether it's actually legally sound is another point, another question. Whether it is simply a tit for tat to prove South Africa wrong, to make it uncomfortable for government, that's probably more the case.
Yeah. So what responsibilities then, if we were to follow the international law definition of a refugee as articulated in such instruments as the UN Convention regarding the status of refugees of 1951, as well as its protocol, what responsibilities then arise for the United States as the receiving country of these quote-unquote refugees?
Well, I think what's going to happen is when they arrive in the U.S., there may well be parties interested to launch applications to declare their refugee status unlawful. It doesn't make sense that it confines or conforms with the two various definitions, or let's just say persecution. It's a gift that has been given by Donald Trump. It underpins a political spat, and I think just like South Africa, there's rule of law in America, very firmly grounded, and I think when these individuals arrive in America, there will be interest bodies, probably from the opposition party, the Democrats, who will launch applications to set their refugee status aside. And the question will be whether Donald Trump actually made a decision that was rational and conforms with the rule of law. That is going to be the challenge.
And as fate would have it, Craig, this departure of these 49 South Africans happens just days after we had a landmark ruling on the question of citizenship and how a person can lose citizenship and in the bounds around that. You are hearing, it's not dominant, but here and there you hear some people saying that while they're gone, let's actually strip them of their citizenship. the position in law there, if I understand it correctly, nothing about their move and their actions, as much as government, for example, can be opposed to it, nothing will strip them of their citizenship, will it?
Oh, you're saying, okay, if these 49 people go to America.
Yes, as opposed to those who acquire second citizenship in light of the recent judgment.
Well, that would be potentially a deprivation, which is obviously a whole different ballgame to what we had last week in the constitutional judgment of losing citizenship, or now upholding the Section 20 of the Constitution, which, just remember, Section 20 of our Constitution says no South African citizen shall be deprived of his or her citizenship. Now, if you technically take up a refugee status, in technical terms, it means that you feel you are no longer safe in your country of origin. So you've got that factor that would go against those South Africans, because they would say you can't have, so it's not aligned to this case of last week, the constitutional case. It's aligned more that if you now want to take up refugee status in South Africa, which is a norm, in the US, it is a norm for any asylum seeker or refugee to have to give up their passport. In fact, if you do not give up your passport, you breach the terms of your refugee status. And this is why, this is not a typical case where people seek asylum and you have to demonstrate that you are being persecuted. Right. This is a free pass.
All right, Craig, let's leave it there for this morning because of time. Thank you for your time and your insights once again. That's Craig Smith, who is an immigration lawyer.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's kick off with Kaizer Chiefs Trophy Cabinet finally having a new edition after the Nedbank Cup triumph over Orlando Pirates. And in goal, Brandon Peterson making a surprise start ahead of Bruce Bavuma. Now the former Bidvest Wits goalie Peterson adamant that it was never about individual players, but for Chiefs to end the trophy drought.
For me, it was a matter of, getting a trophy for the club. Whether I play or not, it didn't matter for me. For me, it was, wherever I find myself, whether it's on the bench, to be that encouragement, to give that motivation to the next player, Fortunately, I got the chance to start today. And yes, moments like this, as a footballer, you always dream of it, And for it to come through, it's still surreal. I still ask myself if it really happened. Am I still sinking? But I'm very happy, and hopefully this is something we can then now build on, going into the future and just keeping the happy days there.
Now, Mamelodi Sundowns, they put one hand on the Betway Premiership Trophy. They had a 3-0 victory over Stellenbosch at the Lucas Masterpieces Moripa Stadium. First half goals, Lucas Ribeiro, Ikram Reyners and Arthur Sales. Here's their boss, Miguel Cardoso.
Stellenbosch is a very good team. Big respect for them. But we were very strong in a game with a lot of tension, emotional tension, because obviously these 3 points puts us in a more simple position than we had before in terms of winning this championship. But still we need to make 1 point, unless Pirates can score a lot of goals. But everything can happen in football. We should worry about ourselves and really play next game in the right way.
And finally, South Africa's athletics team delivered outstanding performances at the World Athletics Relays in China. The men's 4x100 meter relay team, anchored by Akani Simbine, clinched gold with a world-leading time of 37.61 seconds. Not to be outdone, the men's 4x400 meter team also secured gold, and the women's 4x400 meter team adding a medal tally with a bronze. Let's relive the South African men's 4x100 meter relay team gold with Simbine's electrical final leg pivotal, and that's bringing home the win.
It's South Africa, it's USA. Who's going to have it on the final leg? Simbine for South Africa, USA. Hicklin going well. Can Simbine make up the time? I think he can. He's going to take it, and Simbine for South Africa takes on the line. Exceptional form. He's really showed us what he's made of here.
What a brilliant contest on the final leg.
and Simbini, buoyed by that first global medal in the World Indoor Championships for South Africa. Again, their hero over 100 metres gets them home.
Oh, that finish was so fast. The Americans are probably still looking around. But anyway, we'll be back. More sport. Top of the hour. I'm Sai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, 2 of the 5 people arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zotwa Mhluli are expected to appear in the Kwamhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga this morning. The couple was last seen in Mamelodi in Pretoria in February. Judge Philip Lopsher is expected to hand down judgment in the Free State High Court today on whether other defence lawyers can cross-examine the state witness in the trial within a trial in the 255 million rand asbestos roof removal corruption case. And the first group of white Afrikaners granted refugee status by the US government is expected to arrive in Washington this morning. They departed OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg yesterday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, very heavy now on Joburg's Mike 1 running south. It's a crash at Corlett Drive on your way through to Joburg. Traffic's all the way back to Buccleuch. So from the bottom of the N1 mid-ram, come through Buccleuch onto the Mike 1. You sit down through Woodmead, through Marlborough, through Grayston, all the way down to Corlett Drive. Looking very heavy. Earlier crash on the N12 coming out of Benoni into Boksburg is being cleared. It's left a backlog of traffic today from Pitfontein through to about Rondebolt Road. Heavy pressure on the M1 North passing Devlin up through the Deepcliff interchange territory as well. Roadworks on the R21 have moved north towards Bopsfontein Road. If you're leaving the airport, there's a really big queue on your way to Pretoria. Crash earlier this morning near Atterbury on the N1 South. That's a queue coming down from Stormful Road and looking pretty heavily backed up. Crossing to Durban, the rumble strips on the N3 near Pavilion Mall causing delays inbound from Paradise Valley, outbound from Sherwood. It's very heavy. That outbound queue is having a major impact on the N2, particularly southbound where you sit from Umgeni Road into Spaghetti Junction, then into that traffic on the N3 outbound. Probably time to look at alternative routes, but avoid the M13 because it's the obvious route which backs up as well. M7 into Pinetown stays really heavy up to St John's Avenue Bridge. And Cape Town, a crash on the N2 inbound at Mew Way, heavy passing Khayelitsha. Also very big traffic this morning. Delft through to Van Riebeeck Road on the R300. That run up through Kales River towards Brackenfell. Very heavy backlogs. With your traffic, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, tell me what plans De Beers has for lab-grown diamonds, that unit that deals with that.
Well, Thulas, they're shutting down their lab-grown diamond jewelry brand Lightbox, and this is to focus more on natural diamonds. Now, this decision comes as the company battles weak diamond prices due to low demand and tariff uncertainties. Lightbox was launched in 2018 to sell synthetic diamonds at a discount, but wholesale prices of lab-grown diamonds have plunged 90% since then, making it somewhat unsustainable for De Beers to continue the brand. Now, the company's CEO, Al Cook, stated that the persistently declining value of lab-grown diamonds in jewelry underscores the growing differentiation between these factory-made products and natural diamonds. De Beers will discuss selling certain Lightbox assets, including inventory, with potential buyers and work closely with employees, retail partners, suppliers, and other stakeholders to ensure a smooth transition. Now, existing Lightbox customers will continue to receive support, including warranties and after-sales services. The closure of Lightbox is part of De Beers' broader restructuring under parent company Anglo American, which is exploring options to exit the diamond business through a sale or a listing. Despite the challenges, though, De Beers remains committed to natural diamonds and is optimistic about the growing commercial potential for synthetic diamonds in industrial applications. And so its subsidiary, Element 6, will focus exactly on that, industrial applications for synthetic diamonds. And it says it'll be leveraging growing demand in tech and high growth industries.
Let's stay with mining then, and Dowling. Tell me about Sibanye Stillwater. They're shooting the lights out, I see, in terms of performance.
That's right, but the outlook is still downbeat, so not too much to be excited about. But they've really kicked off the beginning of the year on a good note, reporting a significant boost in earnings for the first quarter, with profits surging to 4.1 billion rands, and this despite lower gold and PGM output. Now, the company's financial performance was driven by record high gold prices, steady PGM prices, and cost-cutting initiatives. The restructuring of its PGM operations and realignment of regional services in South Africa have also improved profitability. Now, Sibanye's US PGM operations have also benefited from restructuring, with operating costs declining 37%. Additionally, the US operation expects to receive $6 million under the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act, aimed at promoting domestic supply of critical minerals. Here at home in SA, the gold operations profits more than doubled to 1.8 billion rands, thanks to the record gold price during the period. But operational challenges have led to a cautious outlook. The miner has revised its full-year gold production guidance downwards, with Sibanye now expecting to produce between 514,000 and 546,000 ounces of gold in 2025.
So how are the markets looking at this hour, Dowling?
Kicking things off in Asia, Thulas, trade optimism is in the air as Washington confirmed that a US-China trade deal has been reached, promising to release more details later today, and that really boosting sentiment on that front. Green screens with the Hong Kong Hang Seng leading the gains, up over 1%. That upbeat sentiment also being seen in the US, with futures in positive territory, a difference from last week's downbeat close. Then coming back home, stocks also in the green, with the all-share gaining 1% in Friday's session. Looking at the rand, some weakness coming through this hour. Still stable though. The rand trading at 18.23 to the dollar from about 18.21 an hour ago.
That's the morning briefs. Ndauling Lechela shall be back with one more update for you just after 8:30, in which update shall give you a sense of the kind of trading day you can expect in the markets today.
This year, our entire continent will gather. People from different places united by a common goal: to discover, to connect, and to grow. The world will get to see our vision, the vast potential that lies within an unlimited Africa, with the objective of creating market access to our vast array of leisure tourism products. Join us from 12 to 15 May at the Durban ICC for this unforgettable experience. South Africa awaits. Come find your joy. Africa's Travel Indaba is proudly brought to you by South African Tourism.
Here's some breaking news you might have missed. Gordon, a 44-year-old man, switched to Outsurance and now saves an unbelievable 2,794 Rand a month on his 2019 Ford Everest 2-litre automatic. Imagine having 2,794 Rand more money every month. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me move swiftly. Let me start with a call from Logat who wants to weigh in on this conversation around the alleged refugees that are leaving the country. Good morning to you, Logat. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's Hassan. Yeah,
Hassan, yeah. I thought it's you, but I thought, the way it's framed here, it could be someone else.
Safe as a lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I've been looking at the 49ers, and I want to dub these guys the South African 49ers. The 49ers in San Francisco, the football club, basically when they're in search of gold, that's how they were named when people were going for gold in San Francisco. I think that's what these guys are doing. And I think you are right or Crispin and others are clearly right that this is not based in international law. It's made in terms of a racist law, which they accuse us of using. So clearly, your lawyer that spoke afterwards, talking about challenges in the U.S., he's correct. It's going to happen. It's clearly going to happen. But my point is that America, if they're so interested in refugees, they would not or defund UNRWA. They will not encourage Israel to ban UNRWA. You know, so this inconsistency about who's a refugee. You know, I don't know, how did Trump come there from his German parentage? Did he come as a refugee? I know Einstein was a refugee. I mean, clearly that symbol of saying, "Come here, all of you have like lost things," and basically was supposed to be without color.
Yeah.
Now he's brought about a racist immigration policy, reminding us of apartheid.
All right, Hassan, let's leave it there for this morning. Hassan there weighing in on that. Let me take a call from Hailey, from Joburg. You also want to talk about this situation around refugees, the alleged refugees. Good morning to you.
Good morning to us and all the listeners to us. To us, the refugees are the international citizens around the globe. Every nation around the world, there is refugees. But what is a South African issue, when I look at it, is something different. The President Donald Trump is planning to damage the image of South Africa by the international community. What I know, the South African white farmers, they have the issue of the insecurity. That's one of the points, as I understand, and you understand. There's a numerous number of the farmers was killed in the country. But I can't represent individual cases where in USA about the 45 individuals, I think they're using the common case now when they leave this country. So now what we are facing in the South African government, we need to do something, and our government must think about something. We have a serious crime in our country which you cannot deny.
Absolutely.
No one can deny. Everyone is unsafe and insecure to live in South Africa.
100%.
80 to 90 people are massacred on a daily basis without war.
Yeah.
What is our leaders and our politicians and our police and our ministers and whoever, they are held to secure the national security. One nation, the priority you provide for the country, first thing is security.
Yeah. Hailey, thank you for that. Yeah.
If I complete my point, the nation is insecure. If everyone wanted to immigrate and leave the country because of insecurity, so now the second one is a service providing or the road or railway or electricity, or this is the last point. But my prioritizing is everyone live in South Africa, whether foreigner or citizen or whoever lives in the country, are not safe. So they have a valid reason to leave the country. I think no one can stop them if you want to wake up tomorrow, if you want to immigrate, because I'm not going to live in this country. Thank you, Thulas.
Hailey, thank you for that great point. In fact, what Hailey is saying is quite important for us to not miss, that some of the issues around safety and the levels of crime are common to all of us. And so while Hailey was talking, it reminded me of that definition that I was citing earlier on from the UN Convention regarding the status of refugees. It talks about a refugee being someone who, owing to a well-founded fear, etc., of being persecuted, etc., is unwilling to avail himself to the protection of that country. So I guess the challenge there from what Hailey is saying is those of us who are staying, and there's many of us who are here, who are not going anywhere, we are entitled to the protection of this country as per that definition. We believe that we can avail ourselves to the protection of that country. So while we are all reacting to this development, let's not miss that point about what are some of the objective difficulties that we collectively face as a country, and perhaps this may be an opportunity for us to elevate that conversation. Bramoro in Bloemfontein, good morning. Also on the same topic.
Support Kaizer Chiefs.
I didn't get that, Bramoro.
I hope you don't support Kaizer Chiefs.
No. I'm as neutral as Sweden, my brother.
Thank you. Keep it that way, sweet and sharp. Thank you. You know, the USA, we don't know what is happening to the USA government. 2 years ago, they decided to bring more than 100 people from Afghanistan to seek refugee in South Africa. I guess you remember that story.
I think vaguely I remember that, yeah.
Yes, they bypassed many countries jump Zimbabwe into South Africa for them to seek refugee there. Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi was the then Home Affairs Minister who was against that. All of us were against it. Why couldn't they send those people in their country? Because America messed up Afghanistan. And then we are in a safer South Africa, which obviously you Google, there is no war, there is no persecution in South Africa, because if really there is persecution in South Africa, you wouldn't have only 49 people going out of the country. They don't even represent a minority.
Yeah.
You understand? Even the entire AfriForum group is over 49 population. So if we even talk about AfriForum, it's full of Afrikaners. So are they telling us that only 49 people are standing to tell the whole world that there is persecution in this country? Honestly.
Yeah, Bramoro, let's leave it there for this morning. But who's to say, Bramoro, that there won't be more people who will be taking this up? Who knows how these processes work? I really cannot tell you. But initially, this is the group that is left. Sivuile from KZN, good morning to you. Talk to me about these refugees, quote-unquote refugees.
Good morning, my brother Thulas. Good morning, my brother. Brother Thulas, this is painful. This is painful. I'm William Chemla, former teacher. Amika Cabral says, tell no lies. We know easy victory. My brother, how many massacres did we have in South Africa because of the Boers? And my brother, the word refugee, this is nothing but a linguistic fallacy and malapropism. We cannot allow what Trump is saying, because it's drawing tribal lines. We know.
All right, I don't know what happened there. It wasn't me. I didn't do that. Sivuile, I think I'd gotten your point. Let me just read a WhatsApp message from Jen in Cape Town. So this is Jen's perspective. Jen says, the academic waffling of your guests sounds great, but here's the reality on the ground. As a white person, 1, for 10 years, I have been refused jobs because I was told my skin color is wrong. 2, I have received threats to my life from people on the streets for my skin color, and that is classified as persecution in most countries. It doesn't matter what the politicians say, the reality is different, and that is coming through from Jen in Cape Town. Let me play 1 or 2 voice notes as well that have to do with this issue. Let me take this one.
Thulas, morning. Let them leave, Thulas. Let them leave. We don't feel anything. Let them leave. We have done nothing wrong to them. They just suggested that they want to reunite with their father, Donald Trump. So we as South African, we won't stop them. Let them leave.
Thulasizwe, this time from Bloemfontein. These South Afrikaners, they've been prioritized for refugee status because they have something that is so unique and special, which they are white skin. There are people that deserve this refugee status in America, like people from DRC, people from South Sudan, Palestine, Myanmar, but these ones are being selected because of they are white. What Donald Trump and Elon Musk wants is because they are white.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for those. We'll make more time and have these conversations a bit later on in the show.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good morning. Top story. East London protesting northern suburbs areas this morning. The M2 coming in towards central East London, approaching the NAX, the Northeast Expressway exit from the Beacon area, from Ganubi side. Very heavy backlogs. The N6 coming in towards the N2 is badly backed up. Plenty of road closures, burning tyres, and just general disruption. East London really struggling this morning. Generally sort of Beacon Bay and surrounds. Very heavy. If you're stuck on that N2 from Ganubi, wondering what's going going on. It is protesting, which is split from the suburbs and then in towards that N2. So tyres burning, driving west before NEX. Very heavy out that side. Joburg this morning, the N12 coming from Pitfontein through Benoni into Boksburg. An earlier crash there, still causing delays towards Rondebold Road. The backlog is at least crash on the Mike 1 South near Caller Drive. Very heavy from Buccleuch. A breakdown on the N1 at Buccleuch. That's heavy from New Road this morning. And a taxi crash in Pretoria, N1 South before Atterbury. Traffic backlogged all the way through to Montana. Down in Durban, the rumble strips are causing major delays this morning. Got the rumble strips both sides of the N3 near Pavilion Mall. Inbound from Paradise Valley Pinetown is heavy. Outbound from Sherwood through Spaghetti Junction is backed up. And behind that, the N2 South queues heavily from Inanda roadside just to get through Spaghetti Junction into the N3 outbound. Really worth taking alternative routes. Avoid the M13, Sherwood through Westville. Major delays because that's the most obvious alternative route from the N3. Cape Town this morning, heavy out of Tableview. No traffic lights. Coburg Road and Plattercliff show that run out through the refineries very slow. Quite heavy on the R300 this morning from Delft up to Kales River, and a crash into inbound just by Meway, causing a delay from Baden-Powell, passing Khayelitsha very slowly in towards that scene. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
You are listening to The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Let's turn to the story now. The city of Tshwane has successfully defended its refusal to implement a 5.4% salary increase for municipal workers, with the Labour Court ruling in its favour amid claims of financial hardships. The ruling follows prolonged protests and service disruptions in 2023, stemming from a long-standing wage dispute. Let's speak to Celias Brink, who is the Democratic Alliance Tshwane caucus leader and also the city's former mayor. I believe we would benefit, Celias, with you just starting with the context and background, because it all gets a bit confusing. So this has to do with a salary increment that was meant to kick in 2023, right?
That's correct. There was a second salary dispute as well, but in essence, COVID-19 hit municipalities quite hard. In Tshwane, there was the additional issue that the city was placed under administration in 2020, and that was very financially damaging. So a set of bad consequences and bad decisions led to the municipality, like many others in the country, being objectively unable to pay the salary increases that are negotiated collectively. But unlike most municipalities, Tshwane's council decided to apply to the bargaining council in terms of the collective agreement to say, let's not pay salary increases in 2023 because that would place the city's long-term financial sustainability in jeopardy, a city that was already struggling to meet its ESCOM obligations. And that was what the dispute was about. Even before the matter was heard before the bargaining council or in court, a very violent strike broke out, although a minority of employees participated in the strike. It was exceptionally violent, infrastructure attacked, employees intimidated. There was even a case of attempted murder. And so the court's finding that in this instance, Tshwane was unable to pay those increases, and that in spite of violent labor action, this mechanism in the collective agreement is open to municipalities, is a very important victory.
Yeah, and you say it's an important victory, but what precedent do you believe it sets for municipalities to apply for that exemption from the application of a collective agreement? It's something that I'm familiar with in as far as the private sector and other sectors are concerned. I don't know if I've heard of it in the context of government and especially at local government level.
Quite right. You know, there are many things in the private sector where financial hardships have to prompt the management to make certain changes, and government has largely been insulated against that. I don't think it creates the precedent where masses of municipalities will now apply for exemption. I think there's only been 2 successful exemptions in the entire history of local government. So I don't think it creates a precedent that will benefit or that will disadvantage the workforce. But it does confirm that, like companies who have to look after the money, who have to look after the future of the entity, lest people's jobs are on the line in future, difficult decisions have to be made. But most importantly, the principle that you can't use violence in order to negotiate, I think, has been established. And that's very, very important for government. Because municipalities, once the waste gets strewn in the streets, once infrastructure gets attacked, politicians and officials are very quick to say, no, we don't want this. But if that happens, if you negotiate with a gun to your head, that's when instances happen like we have in the Free State and in the Northwest, where municipalities pay the increases, but then after a while they can't make payroll, so they can't even pay their workers because they haven't made the difficult decisions that come with responsible government.
Am I correct in understanding that one of those negotiation processes in terms of this Labour Court judgment now needs to return to the bargaining table?
That's correct. That's the 2021 refusal by the Bargaining Council, I think, to even consider that exemption application. And the court quite rightly ruled that the Bargaining Council now needs to actually consider the merits of that decision.
So someone listening to all of this may argue that this judgment represents an onslaught on collective bargaining rights. And I can foresee someone later on, long after you and I have concluded our conversation, saying, surprise, surprise, the DA once again in support of a measure that amounts to an attack on the workers' rights, collective bargaining rights. What would you say to that kind of argument?
So let's look at the fiscal crisis in which the country finds itself. And the Minister of Finance decided earlier this year that the only way to get out of it was a tax increase, a VAT increase on the poor. Now that fight has been lost by government, and my party found itself fighting for ordinary folk and saying that a VAT increase is the worst tax on the poor. Now what many people don't mention is at the beginning of this year, all civil servants got a massive above inflation pay agreement for the next couple of years. And it was in part because of that agreement that government has effectively run out of money. So unfortunately, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions to say, civil servants have got job security, they've got the benefits of very politicized collective bargaining. But beyond a certain point, somebody has to pay for those increases. And if it gets to the point where it breaks the bank and it forces you to increase services beyond a certain level, then the entire community, the entire society, including the poorest of the poor, suffer. And that's where leadership has to make difficult decisions. That's not anti-labor. I think in this country, unfortunately, especially public sector unions are very, very militant, very politicized. It's almost impossible to have a conversation about something like pay, even though public servants, comparative to the private sector, get very good salaries.
Right,
but we will have to adjust to reality in this country.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. That's Sirius Brink, who is the Democratic Alliance leader of the caucus in Tshwane. At 8 a.m., and Musa on standby with your latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, KZN security officer shot dead and US grants Afrikaners asylum. Good morning. A 26-year-old private security company officer has been fatally shot in execution style at Hilltop in the north of Durban. Reaction Unit South Africa spokesperson Prem Balram says the motive for the killing cannot be confirmed at this stage. However, the organization is working together with police to bring those responsible for the killing to book. Balram claims his officers have been receiving death threats in recent times. However, it's unclear whether the killing is related to these threats.
Well, we received the call from members of the public living in that area. It's outside the Terrence Park area, just outside the Bedlam CBD, approximately 6 kilometers. And at about 9:50, we received this call of one of the RUSA officers that was shot. The person that had called the control center could not confirm that he was deceased. So we dispatched paramedics and reaction officers, and when they got to the scene, they established that member had been shot in the head and had passed on.
2 of the 5 people arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zotwa Mdluli are expected to appear in the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga this morning. The couple was last seen in Mamelodi in Pretoria in February. Last week, police discovered human remains believed to be those of the missing couple in Rustenburg in Limpopo. Over the weekend, the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masimula, said it may take a few weeks for DNA tests to confirm the identities of the remains.
In terms of the DNA, we will try our best to expedite, but even take a month to come to the right conclusion. The DNA will take more or less about 3 to 4 weeks. We think we'll be able to know whether it is them or not.
Judge Philip Lopsher is expected to hand down judgment in the Free State High Court today on whether other defence lawyers can cross-examine the state witness in the trial within a trial in the 255 million rand asbestos roof removal corruption case. This comes after Advocate Lawrence Hode's lawyer, former Free State Premier Ace Magashule, told the court that he also wanted to cross-examine the state witness. He also revealed transcripts of the interview between Murwadi Chulota and the state investigators. The matter was postponed last Thursday after news that the state witness had been booked off sick. Kamogelo Siakwi reports.
Judge Lopsher's ruling will determine whether the trial within a trial will be confined only to Cholota or other accused may poke holes in the state's case. Lopsher showed disapproval to Hoddes' conduct after he revealed the transcripts and told him his conduct was unacceptable. State prosecutor Johan de Neysen also accused Hoddes of unprofessionalism, but Hoddes was adamant that the transcripts have been submitted to the courts before and its authenticity was never questioned.
The South African Municipal Workers Union, SAMU, has condemned the possible dismissal of nearly 400 suspended Ekurhuleni Metro Police officers following their participation in an unprotected strike in March. The officers used state vehicles to block highways, demanding increased pay and improved working conditions. SAMU's Ekurhuleni Regional Chairperson, Chris Mavunda, has described the consequence management as draconian and called it an assault on workers' rights.
It is regrettable that we happen to find ourselves in this kind of a situation. Both parties, the city of Ekurhuleni and SAMU, assist with the matter in finding an amicable solution. For the people who participated in this activity of the 19th of March, majority of those are members of SAMU, and hence we said we cannot sit back and do nothing. We have to stand up, protect jobs, because what is important for us as municipal workers is that we need to save the jobs of these members who were misled. And during our consultation, this has been confirmed by many of them, that actually it was not their call, but they were misled.
And finally, the first group of white Afrikaners granted refugee status by the U.S. government is expected to arrive in Washington this morning. They departed OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg yesterday. The group reportedly includes 49 Afrikaners comprising families, older people and some younger couples. The chartered aircraft is expected to arrive at Dulles International Airport outside Washington, D.C. Shawan Bryce-Peace reports.
A press event is expected to be hosted by senior officials from the Departments of State and Homeland Security to welcome the first group of Afrikaners Two departments tasked in President Donald Trump's February 7th executive order with prioritizing their admission and resettlement. The expedited processing of the group comes at a time when desperate refugees from other countries have been blocked from coming to the USA, with immigration a hot-button issue for the current administration. A statement from Durko on Friday called it most regrettable that the resettlement of South Africans to the United States under the guise of being refugees is entirely politically motivated.
Recapping the top story, a 26-year-old private security company officer has been fatally shot in execution style at Hilltop in the north of Durban. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Here's some breaking news you might have missed. Gordon, a 44-year-old man, switched to Outsurance and now saves an unbelievable 2,794 Rand a month on his 2019 Ford Everest 2-litre automatic. Imagine having 2,794 Rand more money every month. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer action, Sundown slamming Stellies to all but seal an historic 8th league title. And in athletics, the South Africa's men's 4x100-meter relay team clinching gold at the World Athletics Relays in China. All the details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Top story on the traffic desk now. The chaos that's erupted through East London, northern suburbs this morning, Beacon Bay, Nompulelelo, and that sort of area. So we're talking northern parts from sort of Nahun Valley going up, from Beacon Bay going up, routes like the N2, the N6, Buffalo Road, Batting Road, all of those routes locally under some real pressure this morning. If you're stuck in traffic around East London, that's the problem, particularly coming in from Ganubi side, very heavy along the N2 into some burning tyres down by NEX. Pretoria this morning, taxi crash, N1 South near Atterbury, very heavy from Montali. You'll join at Sefaka Makato and you'll sit in traffic. The M1, very slow this morning through Centurion, Midrand, all the way down to Melrose. There's a breakdown at Buccleuch and a crash down by the Cornet Drive exit. That crash also having a major impact northbound with queues from Boysons all the way up into that Melrose area. Durban, the rumble strips on the N3 at Pavilion Mall causing chaos in and outbound. Sherwood out to Pavilion, Paradise Valley inbound, N2 South in Nunda Road trying to get into the N3 at Spaghetti. It's a real mess this morning. Very heavy backlogs, worse than last week. Cape Town still dealing with a crash on the N2 inbound at Muway, slowing traffic passing Khayelitsha, and a broken down bus blocking the bus lane in front of Langa on that section of the N2 as well. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 10 minutes after 8 on this Monday. We are into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. I don't think I need to give you a long recap of what's really dominated the agenda this morning. So let me just read one or two voice notes on this issue of the 49 South Africans who have left the country under the designation by the Trump administration that they are Afrikaner refugees from South Africa. There's a message here from Matari here in Gauteng, who interestingly addresses me as my colleague Sakina Kamwendo. But nevertheless, Matari says, we shouldn't be damn Afrikaners. Even politicians themselves here at home moved from townships and rural areas when they felt discomfort in those areas, more so taking their children to prestigious schools, departing from where they themselves grew up. Let Afrikaners go seek comfort that South Africa lacks. So that message coming through from Matari in Gauteng, weighing in on that situation. There's another message that I am not seeing now that I wanted to read. It was quite interesting, a different take. In fact, yeah, there it is. This message is from Kathy. Kathy says, "Good morning, Mr. Simelane. I don't care about who goes where. People go where they think suits them. But my heroes are Akani Simbine and Bayanda Walaza. I love them," says Kathy. "I watch them all the time and don't care about all the noise about everything else." So that message coming through from Kathy. But obviously, that makes the point about what has dominated the conversation in the last 2 hours. In this hour, in the next few minutes or so, we'll be talking about that Constitutional Court judgment with regard to the Copyright Amendment Bill and the access to reading materials by people who are blind and visually impaired in the country. And speaking of court judgments, a bit later on in the show, towards the end really of the show, we'll focus on an interesting judgment that has come through from the High Court. If you live in a sectional title arrangement, you want to listen to that because it has to do with instances and circumstances under which the body corporate of a sectional title scheme can, with the approval of a court, disconnect electricity to those units whose owners are in arrears. That will need court approval, obviously, but I think this judgment has clarified under which circumstances people can be disconnected by the body corporate. So that is coming up at about 10 to 9 this morning, is a conversation that we will raise at that point. So weigh in on these conversations and any others that may be on your mind this morning. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We're leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now, what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack, and what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's done it again! Introduction! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba, as they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me start quickly with two or so of your voice notes before turning over to the calls.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I just want to ask Thulasizwe. The refugee status offered by Donald Trump administration, is it only for the white Afrikaners? I mean, are black people also have a chance, or maybe can you find maybe in future if any South African, black or white, are they qualified? Are they offered such an opportunity? If yes, I think I might also take that opportunity rather than living in a country where there is no water. Every weekend there is blackout. The entire weekend, no electricity, no services. I think I might also consider that if black people are also offered such an opportunity. Please find out, Thulasizwe. I think I might take that and live a better life. Thank you, Thulasizwe. Great show.
Thank you for that. And I'm chuckling because I'm just laughing at the part where you're saying you might also want to take advantage of that. But I think your voice note makes the point that I was trying to make earlier on, and you make it more eloquently than I did earlier on, that in the midst of all of this, we should introspect and reflect. What is it about our country that makes it so difficult to get on with the basics, the issues of safety and security? Yes, granted, there's no targeting of Afrikaners per se on the basis that they are Afrikaners, but the lack of safety and security for all of us and the vulnerability of rural communities is an issue of concern to all of us. And perhaps in the midst of all of this, we should be having that conversation, the hard conversation that says what makes it easy for people to paint us in a particular way as it relates to such issues as providing safety for your communities, basic water, just basic infrastructure, the issues that have led to people such as the person who sent that voice note saying that if the opportunity was open to them, they would also take it so that they live in a functional country. Kuma in Cape Town, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about the same issue of refugees this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Simelane. I hope you are good.
Good, Baba. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you see now, after this announcement by Trump, when these Afrikaners are going there, I understand now why they don't buy building furniture, because they don't mind to move from country to another country. You see, because they are from originally they are from Netherlands. The people who are called Afrikaners. It's just the name that they gave them. They gave themselves to be called Afrikaners, which means Africans. And then they come to South Africa, and then we welcome them. Anyway, they came, and now they go to America. So that is why, like I'm saying, they won't be able to buy a building furniture. So, on a serious note, Mr. Simelane, I think that the Afrikaner community, I would say in a way that they are full of lies, you see, because crime is affecting everyone. You see, it's not affecting only Afrikaners.
Yeah.
The people which Donald Trump was supposed to, from my point of view, the people who are supposed to say, they are not safe in South Africa, they must go to America, is women and children. Those are the most people who are not safe in South Africa. They are raped, they are killed, they are done everything.
All right.
So to say that it's Afrikaners only that must go there, where the people who are not safe in South Africa is women and children, which is black or white. So I don't like that. So,
Kuma, thank you for that.
I hope they are right there.
All right. Thank you for that, Kuma. Just one caution there, of course. This group that is left doesn't represent all Afrikaners in South Africa, doesn't even represent half of Afrikaners in South Africa. That's always important to make that point, that it's a group that has decided that they're going to take up this offer from Donald Trump. The overwhelming majority of Afrikaners, rightly so, being natives of South Africa, being South Africans, have no interest really, would rather stay, I imagine, and face the issues, and we find collective solutions in the country. Always important to make that caution that we don't generalize over the decisions of a few people that have decided to go in a particular way. I tell you what, Tulani from KZN and Glenn in Bedfordview, I apologize. I do need to take a quick break. I will call you back and then we can have the conversation a bit later on. So please stay on the line. We take your details and we'll call you back a bit later on.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's get to the story now. The Constitutional Court delivering a landmark ruling in the case that is known as Blind SA versus President of the Republic of South Africa, in which it declared that Section 19D of the Copyright Amendment Bill be immediately read into the existing Copyright Act. This ensures that persons with disabilities, particularly those who are blind or visually impaired, can access reading materials in accessible formats without needing permission from copyright holders, which is a long-fought victory in the struggle against the country's so-called book famine. So let's speak to Fatima Lahore, who is a candidate attorney at Section 27. They've been at the forefront of this fight. Good morning to you, Fatima, and thank you for your time. It's an extraordinary remedy, is it not? Lifting a section from the amendment bill before it comes into effect and immediately plonking it into the current law as it stands. Does it signal the seriousness with which the Constitutional Court approached this matter?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, to you and your listeners. Thank you so much for having me today. Yes, this is a landmark victory in our long-awaited fight, which goes back to 2022 when we first appeared in the Constitutional Court, challenging certain provisions of the Copyright Act, which criminalized anyone who converted reading materials into accessible formats without the consent of the copyright holder. Last week on May the 7th, we received a landmark judgment in which the Constitutional Court brought in Section 19D into the Copyright Act. And what Section 19D is that when we first appeared into in the Constitutional Court in 2022, the court crafted its own remedy, which is Section 13A, as an interim measure. This interim measure was only in effect for 24 months. This interim measure allowed people who are blind and visually impaired to convert materials into accessible formats, and then asked Parliament to then rectify this law. Parliament completed its task on the 29th of February 2024 and approved the Copyright Amendment Bill. This is where Section 19D was then created. However, the 24 months court deadline then lapsed as the President has not signed the bill. Therefore, this could not be brought into effect. Section 27, on behalf of Blind SA, urgently went to the Constitutional Court in September of 2024, and as a result to resuscitate the Section 13A remedy. The court, as an interim measure, did resuscitate the 13A remedy. However, on the 7th of May, we received judgment stating that the court has brought in Section 19D, and it can be read in immediately into the Copyright Act until the copyright bill is passed into law.
Do you understand why there's such a hold-up in getting this bill over the line? I suppose it's concerns about various other aspects, because it regulates more than just this aspect that you and I are talking about, the access to material, copyrighted material converted to formats that enable blind and visually impaired people to access them. But overall, I was looking at the timeline from 2015 to this date, 2015 being the first time that it went to Parliament, this process. Do you understand why we just can't get it over the line? And even these aspects, which were not in contention, even as the President referred it to the Constitutional Court?
Yes, definitely. So this has been a very long, drawn-out process, and the President has had several reservations on the copyright amendment bill before. He has referred it back to Parliament on previous occasions, and now he has referred the bill to the Constitutional Court. And this referral hearing will be heard later this month, of which we will be making submissions as amici on behalf of Blind SA. However, you are right in saying that this particular section is not contested in the bill. However, there are several other issues that the President does have with the bill, and therefore he has referred it to the Constitutional Court to determine its constitutionality. However, this Section 19D will not be affected, as it's not something that has been contested and will remain in effect until the bill is passed into law.
Right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights. That's Fatima Lahore, who is a candidate attorney at Section 27, an important judgment coming through from the Constitutional Court.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
A very good morning. Let's kick off with Mamelodi Sundowns on the brink of clinching their 8th consecutive premiership crown. After a 3-0 win over Stellenbosch at Lucas Moripa Stadium, the Brazilians blew Stellies away with 3 goals inside the first 17 minutes. Lucas Libero, Ikram Reyners, Arthur Sales all on target. The result lifts Sundowns to 67 points, needing just one more to mathematically secure the title, although they could be crowned early if Pirates drop points tomorrow against Arrows. Here's the Sundowns boss Miguel Cardoso.
Stellenbosch is a very good team, big respect for them, but we were very strong in a game with a lot of tension, emotional tension, because obviously these 3 points puts us in a more simple position than we had before in terms of winning this championship, but still we need to make 1 point unless Pirates can score a lot of goals. But everything can happen in football. We should worry about ourselves and really play next game in the right way.
Rugby, the junior Springboks fell short in their bid to capture the Under-20 Rugby Championship. They lost to New Zealand 48-45 after leading 26-24 at the break. But the SA Under-20 head coach Kevin Foote said the players can take huge positives.
We are definitely working hard on our game model, and I think we've got 5 principles that everybody sort of understands now. And yeah, I agree with you. Maybe on one day one fired and on another day the other didn't fire, but I think that from a character perspective and a leadership perspective, we are firing, and the lessons that we're learning here are going to be great for us going forward. So, yeah, there are different aspects in our game that we haven't got everything together all in the same game, but having said that, I'd rather that comes together in June, July than now.
And let's go to South Africa's athletics team, delivering an outstanding performance at the World Athletics Relay in China. The men's 4x100-meter relay team, anchored by Akani Simbine, clinched gold with a world-leading time of 37.61 seconds. Not to be outdone, the men's 4x400-meter team also secured gold, and the women's 4x400-meter team adding to the medal tally with a bronze. And we relive now the men's 4x100-meter relay team gold with Akani Simbine's electrifying final leg pivotal.
It's South Africa, it's USA. Who's going to have it on the final leg? Simbine for South Africa. USA, Hicklin going well. Can Simbine make up the time? I think he can. He's going to take it. And Simbine for South Africa takes on the line. Exceptional form. He's really showed us what he's made of here.
What a brilliant contest on the final leg. And Simbine, buoyed by that first global medal in the World Indoor Championships for South Africa. Again, their hero over 100 metres gets them home.
And we're also blazing through the finish line here on the Morning Brief Sport. I'm Zai Khan. Look forward to more around 12:30.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against Eastern Cape Judge President Sabie Mbenenge resumes today with a new witness. The witness is expected to be an official at the Office of the Chief Justice. A 26-year-old private security company officer has been fatally shot in execution style at Hilltop in the north of Durban. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready to meet with the Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday after US President Donald Trump publicly urged Ukraine to do so. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Cap City, Pretoria first up. Crash involving a taxi at Atterbury Road has been cleared, but there's a big backlog to clear through coming from the Montana Stormfall side. N14, Krugersdorp Highway through Brockfontein on to the N1 to John Foster's heavy this morning. R21, the roadworks up by Bobsfontein causing delays leaving the airport. And a crash near Corlett Drive this morning on the Mike 1 causing chaos both ways. South from Buccleuch, northbound from Boyce. There's a big pile up of traffic on the Mike 1 this morning for those wanting to get through or get to Sandton. Durban, the rumble strips on the N3 causing chaos. Inbound is sitting from Paradise Valley, outbound from Sherwood. The N2 north and south really backed up badly, trying to get through Spaghetti and get into the N3. And the poor old M13 next door taking a real hammering with sort of spillover traffic there. N2 north towards Gateway looking fairly busy as well. Cape Town crash both sides of the N2 at Muway and Khayelitsha. Inbound is heavy coming from Baden-Powell, but just watch for slowing traffic outbound. Marine Drive still pretty sluggish as you make your way away towards Sunset Beach, coming out of Tableview. And East London this morning protesting northern suburbs of East London, Nompumelelo and sort of Beacon Bay, Nahoon Valley area. There's a whole big pile-up of traffic in the north of East London. The N6, the N2 routes badly backed up, particularly if you're coming in from Ganubi or trying to get out of Ganubi to the N2 and then down to NEX. It's really heavily backed up. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, tell me about news out of Aspen and their CEO, Stephen Sard. What's happening there? He's doubling down on the firm buying some shares.
That's right, Tula. So Aspen CEO Stephen Sard making a bold statement of confidence in the company's future by investing an additional 100 million rand in its shares. Now, this move comes after Aspen's stock experienced a downturn last month following a warning about a potential 2 billion rand hit to its core earnings due to a contractual dispute with a contract manufacturing customer. Now, the dispute, which involves a manufacturing and technology agreement for mRNA products, has raised concerns about the company's financial performance. The pharmaceutical industry is, of course, facing headwinds, including the ongoing trade war initiated by the US, which could impact Aspen's manufacturing business. Despite these challenges, analysts say Sard's investment signals his faith in the company's long-term prospects. In an update, Aspen said it is taking steps to boost its growth, including developing medicines and vaccines for Africa and securing a loan package. The company's market value has declined, but Aspen remains focused on its growth strategy. And just looking at that share price over a 1-year period, the stock is down 45%, but we did see a slight rebound on Friday after CEO Sard bought more shares. It closed about 5% higher in that session.
And in construction and infrastructure in that sector, tell me about Robex. Why are they delaying the release of the company's results?
So those results were supposed to be out today, but the group did delay the release of the financial numbers due to a whistleblower report alleging misconduct within the company. Now, the construction giant's board said it takes these allegations seriously, and so it's initiating an independent investigation to ensure a thorough review. Although the claims are currently unsubstantiated, the company says it prioritizes transparency and regulatory compliance, looking for legal advice to handle the situation appropriately. Now, the investigation's outcomes is not expected to impact the financial results, and the company's earnings guidance remains unchanged. For Raubex had previously forecasted an increase in headline earnings driven by improved performance in 3 of its 4 divisions. Raubex has not confirmed a new date for its earnings report, but says once there is further clarity on the investigation's progress, it'll update shareholders through a SENS statement.
Lastly, Dowling, what kind of a day can we expect on this Monday in the markets?
So local markets set to start the week in positive territory, extending last Friday's gains. It's a busy week on the company news front. Results out from property players Redefine and Baldwin. Retailer Boxer also out with numbers today. So lots to digest when markets open. Looking at the currency scene, the rand back on the front foot, trading stronger this hour at 18.20 to the dollar. Then over in Wall Street, futures are in the green as traders await more details on the deal struck by Washington and Beijing this past weekend, and that US-China trade deal also moving markets in Asia. Sentiment upbeat on that front, and stocks on track to end the day in the green.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauling Lechela. She's kept you updated on business, markets, and the financial news throughout the morning here on the Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, let's get to this story now. A recent High Court ruling has affirmed that body corporates in sectional title schemes have the legal right to disconnect electricity to units whose owners are in arrears, provided the proper legal procedures are followed. The decision balances the rights of individual owners with the need to maintain financial sustainability within communal living schemes. Let's speak to Carlo Mariani, who is a property entrepreneur and founder of the Property Coach. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Carlo, so this is always a contentious issue where an owner has fallen into arrears in terms of their levies and utilities, and then the trustees try to resort to, a restriction and a cut in terms of electricity and even water. How does this new case move our understanding of where the law stands on that issue?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to all your SFM listeners. Well, I think this is an important ruling in terms of creating certainty on the course of action that trustees should follow in order to recoup monies owed to the body corporate in a legal and lawful way, which is great news for anybody that is involved in the property market directly or indirectly. Having said so, there's still a big burden on the trustees to obtain a judgment from the High Court, which we know very well it's neither quick nor inexpensive. So it still leaves body corporate quite exposed to sectional title owners that are not paying in full their levies as they should be. So the concern remains in terms of the financial viability of too many body corporates in South Africa.
So the way I understand you, from what you just said now, the process is that no matter how long it takes, you can't resort to self-help in that before there's that court order that authorizes that you can, restrict a person's rights to access to electricity by switching it off. No matter how long it takes, you have to go through that process and obtain a court order.
Absolutely, Thulasizwe. No matter how high the frustration can be at times when sectional title owners don't pay the levies, and in some cases, like the electricity, you simply cannot and should not at any point in time take the law in your hands, because that is just simply going to make everything a lot more complicated, a lot more cumbersome, and ultimately can compromise the ability of the body corporate to legally recoup the monies owed to the body corporate. So patience, knowledge, and follow protocol. And I think just maybe another piece of advice for all sectional title owners and trustees in particular. to switch to prepaid, not just prepaid electricity, but wherever possible, prepaid meters for all the units in all body corporates, because that significantly reduces the liability of body corporates that need to collect electricity as well, such as in the case that you quoted earlier on.
Was this case born out of the experience that there's a lot of resorting to self-help, which the law doesn't encourage? In fact, it frowns upon. Is there, in your experience, a lot of instances where trustees resort to that kind of self-help where you owe and you've fallen behind 2-3 months and basically they just go and disconnect? Does that happen a lot?
Well, I think the challenge is that the role of a trustee is a difficult role, and is a role that many people take on without proper understanding of the necessary pieces of legislation and what is legal, what is not legal, what is advisable, and what is not advisable. It's a kind of complex of, let's call it, ignorance in terms of lack of knowledge of legislation and in terms of lack of patience. What I want to really urge anybody that is planning to buy or is invested in a sectional title property in South Africa at this point in time is to conduct a very proper, thorough due diligence on the financials of the body corporate, as well as the management and the governance of the body corporate before the purchase into a sectional title unit. Because unfortunately, there are too many body corporates that are not well run, that are financially very unstable, to say the least, and that can become a serious burden on any sectional title owner. So buyers beware, definitely.
So, Carlo, how does the law as it stands now, including after this judgment, reckon with the realities that sometimes people run into financial difficulties and fall behind? People lose their jobs and battle to keep up with their responsibilities, which naturally would include utilities and levies. How does it grapple with that, juxtaposed as well with the fiduciary responsibilities of trustees to the financial health of these sectional ownership schemes?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Thulasizwe, not one with a simple answer. I would say if anybody falls in serious financial difficulties, the same way as you are strongly encouraged to talk to your bank if you have a home loan that you have to service on a monthly basis, I would strongly recommend that you open a communication channel with the trustees, with the managing agent, so that you're not sort of like just hiding behind the problem, but you're getting into a discussion. And again, making use of prepaid services, that's a great practice both for owners, managing agents, and trustees at all times.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights. Really helpful. Also, those tips that you are sharing with us this morning. That's Carlo Mariani, who is a property entrepreneur and founder of The Property Coach.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Right, let me start with one or two voice notes before going to the calls. Tulani, I see your call. Glenn and Tabiso, I'm coming to you shortly.
Good morning, Thulasizwe and the listeners. I myself could have taken the offer if black people were also given the opportunity. Let's say we change the name of a refugee to better living and working conditions, because South Africa, nothing is happening, shame. Our youth are on drugs and drinking a lot because we are not working primarily by Proteagland.
Yeah, I'm struck by how many people keep saying that if the opportunity was opened, beyond the groups that the Trump administration has identified, they would also take up that. I didn't expect that there would be so many people who are saying that, but here we are, a lot of people saying, and I suppose some of it has to do with what in our country we then call economic migrants, which is a distinct thing from a refugee in the original sense of the word. But the sentiment, I've been hearing it quite a lot.
Morning SAFM. I just wanted to check now. Now this refugee status is for Afrikaners. And AfriForum and those people in Orania, they said Afrikaner is not a race. It's a way of living. And by sourcing, I'm saying that they said even black people can come stay in Orania as long as they tick certain boxes. Does this still apply to this refugee status? Or in this case, Afrikaner means a race. We can't have one word meaning two things in international standards. So I think we need somebody to explain that one. Savage from Atteridgeville.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I suppose it's a matter of interpretation of what the exact position is on the United States side, right? Because it was Donald Trump who determined that Afrikaners in South Africa are being treated badly and being marginalized and being targeted. So the standard we're applying is a Donald Trump standard. Does it refer to a cultural group, people who use the same language, or is it based purely on their race? I'm not able to answer that question. Let me take a few calls. Tulani in KZN, also on this issue of refugees. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe, and to your listeners. Mm-hmm. The question of who goes where is really immaterial. I think what is at essence here is that post-1994, a democratic dispensation being ushered in, this situation created new realities. It became even more untenable for the primary beneficiaries of apartheid. That is why there are more pull factors than push factors in this case. What is fundamental is that is to create a lie to say there is a group which is being targeted, which is being massacred, which there is an onslaught driven against them, which creates a diplomatic difficulty for the government, as we have seen the relations between U.S. as Trump president and our country. And this thing is not isolated from domestic and global issues. It has got a linkage between the DA agenda of trying to reverse and push back the transformative policies around Bella Act, Expropriation Bill, NHI, and so on. And again, at a global stage, the participation of South Africa in ICJ regarding the Israeli-Palestine conflict has led forces like Trump and others to take a particular stance against South Africa. Now, you cannot simply dismiss it as a very insignificant group, but it heightens the pressure against South Africa.
All right, Tulani.
Far from reality. Thank you, Thulasizwe.
Tulani, let's leave it there. Thank you for that. That's Tulani in KZN. Clan in Bedford View. Good morning.
Tulas, good morning, my brother.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
The irony of the whole thing is that I'm currently at my dentist in Pretoria who's 100% Afrikaner and is very happy with this country.
No, there are many of those experiences that you will find across the country.
Yes, Tulas, this is my 2 cents worth. The Afrikaners that have decided to leave the country, I see nothing wrong with it. You know, if they think the USA has greener pastures there, there's school shootings, there's all kinds of problems in the USA. I studied there, so I know the kind of issues that are there. It's not as good as it looks. It's not Hollywood all over. So people who want to go to the USA, they are more than welcome to do so. The only thing I'm against is the peddling of lies about our country, that there's an onslaught of Afrikaners. That is not true. As I'm speaking to you, I have a lot of African friends and clients, and they are very happy with the country. They are concerned about the crime just like any other citizen.
Yes.
They are concerned about our daily issues just like any other citizen, but they are not thinking of leaving the country. Therefore, those who want to live Tulas, I think I will even escort them to OR Tambo. I'll be happy and say goodbye. The only thing I want to know, Tulas, from you as an attorney.
Well, not yet an attorney. Getting there.
Okay. But based on the Concord judgment last week, do they still hold South African citizenship even though they are refugees in the US? That's the only part I want to understand.
Yeah, I think from that judgment, actually, Glenn, it's quite clear that citizenship is one of those rights that are quite, you can't take it willy-nilly. They would need to tick quite a few of the boxes for them to lose their citizenship, but very much so they remain citizens. But the difficulty, and very quickly, Glenn, it comes in with the requirement that this person is not able to avail themselves to the protection of their country. So when they're in the United States, if they run into problems, for example, can they go to the U.S. embassy, South African embassy, and say, hey, listen, I've lost my passport, please help me? Because that has implications at international law, whether or not they continue to be considered refugees. But as you and I agree, we're not talking about refugees in the international law sense of things. Glenn, thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Let me take a traffic update and I'll come back with all of your calls. Crispin, I see you. Tabiso, Janusz, and Joey, I see your calls. I'm coming to you in a moment.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Just a reminder of absolute chaos northern parts of East London this morning with protesting, Nompumelelo area, Nahoon Valley sort of region, N2 coming in from Ganubi. In fact, Ganubi main road out to the N2 is all backed up. N2 down through Beacon Bay towards NEX, the N6 going out towards the traffic circle. It's all very heavy, burning tyres and road closures. Pretty substantial protesting north of northern suburbs of East London. The N2 and N6 really are under pressure out that side. Joburg Swanning crash on the entry north at Giluli, so coming up from Bedford View, it's slow. Roadworks on the R21 Bopsfontein northbound causing a big backlog, and there's crash on the Mike 1 South at Caller Drive, still causing backlogs coming off the N1 at Buccleuch. N1 South coming through Pretoria, that crash at Atterbury Road is all eased up. Durban, absolute chaos around these rumble strips near Pavilion Mall. N3 inbound from Paradise Valley, N3 outbound from Spaghetti Junction, N2 South to get into it, queues from Inanda Road, and the poor old M13 Westfield Sherwood, very heavy disruptions as well. Cape Town, crash on the N2 on both sides at Meway, so coming in from Baden Powell, it's heavy. Outbound, this is a bit of a slowdown. And if you're on your way in from Justenburg to Stellenbosch, a crash on the R304 just after the Bottleray Junction, and then some roadworks at that bridge at Kayamandi. R304 going south into Stellenbosch, heavily backed up. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Again from the Free State. You do realize that there are plus minus 6,000 young farmers working in the USA every year for the last 10 years. That's pretty common knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. But I don't know if it features in this conversation because I think this has to do specifically with people who are saying they are leaving because they are being persecuted or are accepting from the Trump administration that designation. I think it's more specific than people who see an opportunity elsewhere. And that's fair and fine. Many people do that across the world every day. But thank you for that input. Crispin in KZN, good morning to you.
Thulasizwe, I think the issue that we have to tackle is Trump's fundamental misreading of the world, and that's why this issue has international significance. He does not understand what oppression means. So when a white group experiences some difficulties, he thinks that's oppression. If a black group experiences really severe hardships, he doesn't even recognize it as oppression. So it's really important for white people to say, look, this is our experience. My experience is I grew up with immense privilege of many kinds. One of the ones that persists, that people just don't talk about very much, is that white people generally live in very, very convenient areas, close to places of work. I mean, that's an outcome of apartheid that persists to this day. But in terms of personal interactions with people, I don't know. I think sometimes white people go around with a wish to find offense from other people, and that's not my approach. I do try and be friendly to whoever I encounter, from whatever kind of background they are. And if you have that kind of attitude in this society as a white person, the level of respect and thoughtfulness that you get is often quite overwhelming. I would much rather be walking down the street in this area than I would be in the street in say, the UK, where people are so dismissive and don't connect at all. Here, people really respond with warmth and enthusiasm at connection, especially if you do like the really basic thing of speaking to people in their language, which is like, why wouldn't we be doing that?
Yeah.
So those issues, and white people need to say, we are not oppressed. This is a ridiculous idea.
All right. Crispin, thank you for that. Always enjoy your inputs. That's Crispin in KZN. Let me take a call from Tabiso in Polokwane. Good morning to you, Tabiso.
I intend to be blunt.
Yes, please go ahead. Be blunt within the bounds, obviously, of the radio medium and what else, that I have to adhere to. No. But be as blunt as you want to be. Yeah.
I wanted to be blunt to say, there are a number of South Africans that have suffered and have been My plan will be that we have left 49 individuals who are racist who have left I've been reading a number of comments from people in the United States. They are shocked about what is happening. Saying there's an issue of refugees in the United States where everyone is being deported. The Rwandan is. When there's a discussion, some refugees must go to Rwanda. But the South Africans who are not necessarily persecuted, they could easily go to Orania and go and sit and stay there. But then unfortunately, we live in a they expect that what their parents and their great parents have experienced some years ago, they will experience it. And then lastly, I want to check as to what will happen, because America is not like our country where you can just take someone and and win the battle and come back. What will happen when Trump goes out of elections? Because you're going to have a new president who might view these things and start cancelling the refugee status. What will happen? Are they going to come back to this country? Are we going to give them red carpet?
Well, Tabiso, that's one of the realities. I suppose that's part of what they have taken into the bargain, that there's that possibility as well, that in a few years' time, it might be reviewed, this whole situation, when a new president is in office. And I suppose in that calculation, they figured that it's still worth it to take up this designation and offer from the Trump administration. Janusz in Cape Town, good morning to you.
Good morning to us. Listen, not many countries were not colonized in Africa and other sides of the world. In Africa, we know that actually most of them were colonized by whoever, French, German, English, Portuguese, whatever. And also, like in other sections of the world, like America was colonized, China was colonized, India was colonized, Australia, Singapore, whatever. And my point is that in this country, like let's take China for instance, they were colonized, India was colonized. At this stage, America, they are most powerful countries in the world. And they don't go and complain because of the colonization. We've got such a big problem. They go forward. In China, for instance, they had a system. They had a time with the Mao Zedong, with destroying the industrial and also he was a culture revolution. 50 million. You don't imagine, Janusz, that in the first 30 years after the end of colonization in those countries, they were still grappling with the legacies of that colonialization. Let me give you an example. The situation between India and Pakistan. To what extent, for example, is that part of the legacy of how colonization ended with the partition in 1947? Does that make it invalid, linking what's happening now to the partition in 1947?
Yes, I understand it. But whether it is 100 years or 30 years, there was always a progress in China. Let's look at in China now, how developed they are, how strong they are. But we in our South Africa, we always try to find somebody or some institution or somebody to blame for the not developing, and we actually government find apartheid and colonialism. Sure. We're not going to go any further, which we're going to not forget. We must learn about it, but we must go forward and try
thrive in our country, not on the negativity.
Got you, Janus. Thank you for that. And I agree with you that we have agency to progressively change our situation and not always be harking back to colonialism and apartheid, but to completely ignore the legacies that we continue to live with. I think it's quite unrealistic. But anyway, we're out of time. That's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM, coming through after the news.
In our top stories, a new witness in Judge President Mbenenge's tribunal and Zelensky ready to meet Putin for peace talks. Good morning. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge resumes today with a new witness. The witness is expected to be an official at the office of the Chief Justice Neil Naidu. Kenny Mapanga reports.
Naidu is expected to give testimony relating to CCTV footage that will be handed in as evidence before the tribunal. The CCTV footage will also give meaning to the photographs of the Mthatha High Court that has frequently been placed before witnesses from the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court last week. Andiso Mengo, a judge's secretary of the said division, alleges that she was sexually harassed by Judge President Mbenenge via in-person interaction and electronic communication between June 2021 and November 2022.
A 26-year-old private security company officer has been fatally shot in execution style at Hilltop in the north of Durban. Reaction Unit South Africa's spokesperson Prem Balram says the motive for the killing cannot be confirmed at this stage. However, the organisation is working together with police to bring those